Hello, good evening and welcome. We are live. 4 minutes to go. Quite early today. YouTube. Yes. It has its moments, doesn't it? It's repeatedly logging me out. So at the moment I'm logged in. If you're logged in, then you can say hello to me in the chat. Mike is at this very moment sending the reminder, in case you could have forgotten. But it is the first match. They wouldn't, so then they're not interested, are they? But it is the first match of the Premier season tonight, so Mike's got half an eye on that. He says he's turned it off. Oh, all right. I think he's protesting too much. Right, you should be seeing an After Hours poster. I need to get to the bit where I can see it on the watch page, don't I? Literally every week for the past 3-4 weeks, it's logged me out in the middle of a live session. Yeah, your timing's been better. Hello, Deb. Hello. We've got some... What have we got tonight? We've got some... Let me have a look. Oh, we've got a new app. We have a new app that I found for editing photos. We have an old favourite with a new twist. We have Affinity Photo. We have toys. Oh, we have toys. Hello, Kim. Carl can't be with us tonight. Now, Carl's a Liverpool fan, and we assumed he'd be watching the match. But Mrs. Carl has taken him out. I think that's possibly grounds for divorce, don't you, Mike? Yeah. And Liverpool were doing rather well, weren't they? Yeah. So they're playing Norwich? Yeah. Yep, and they were winning 3-0? It was 3-0, yep, they're doing rather well. So what's everybody been up to? Oh, it's now 4-0. So Carl will be watching on catch-up and enjoying this. I hope you've watched the match first, Carl, rather than after hours. I will allow you that. Do you think he's got an Apple Watch that keeps him... See, some people don't like to know the score. I mean, you do. You can't help yourself. You're obsessed. But United aren't playing till Sunday. And United are playing Chelsea. So, anyway, never mind football. Oh, you are in the Rockies. Nice. I've got a friend in Virginia. Hello, Roger. Is that far? It's probably totally the other side of the country. I'm not good with US geography. Never been. Never been. But he assures me, he's been away for a holiday and assures me that it's lovely over there. But he likes it cold, like I do. And it's not cold here. It's far too hot in the UK. After last week's floods, they've sort of calmed down a bit, haven't they now? Today's calamity, because, hey, it's the UK, there can't not be a calamity. The national grid's gone down. If you are from the US and you have no idea what the national grid is, the national grid is the UK's power centre organisation. So that it provides electricity to the entire country. And they have had a problem. And they have got power cuts in the southeast, which is down by London. So luckily that doesn't bother us. And up in the northeast, which is, if you know the UK, Newcastle, Middlesbrough way, and Glasgow in Scotland. So at the moment, it's missing us. If we totally disappear suddenly, that could well be why. So the whole of the London Underground, which is a pretty big area, has ground to a halt. There was already problems on the trains and the airports, but now they've gone down as well. They've got no power. So, if we have people with us from London usually watching, I'm betting you're not watching live. Oh, how long's Boris been in power? Yeah, fantastic, isn't it? Good evening, Graham. The twins. The twins looked fab. The twins are in the slides. There's also something else. I should be cross-questioning you, Graham. I want to know if you have seen something this week. Right, but I better make sure you can see my desktop, because it is 9 o'clock in the UK. I've only wiped one half of my glasses, so I'm going to have to do the other, because I can't see. Oh dear, it's still muggy warm. They've been promising us thunderstorms all day to clear this, and they've lied. So we could have thunder and lightning in the middle of all this. Blue desktop, and across to the presentation. Let's have a look at that. Oh, naughty, naughty, naughty. I've just realised I had Camtasia sat there, not actually press record on it. Nothing like organisation, is there? And they also had ScreenFlow. And I totally ignored that as well. Right. Yes, whatever. ScreenFlow will bother me. Okay, let's get the slides up. Now we can do the slidey thing. Hey, there we go. And it would make most sense not to do that. Right, there we go. That's what we've got. Who's heard about PDF Expert? Let me know in the chat.
Me.
We need to notify someone if you lose power. Send help. Superdog. Graham, Superdog. Yes, that was a Pixelmator video. I could tell because I think Pixelmator does the best halftone. I love the way it does it. It's responsive enough to give you really granular control, and I think it's the best one. If I actually had to do halftone for a specific job, I would do it in Pixelmator. The Rocky Mountain range towards the west. Okay, I need to be taking a look at a US map, don't I? Yes, Roger, they are down in Ipswich. The hospital's gone in Ipswich, hasn't it? That was all over the news. Well, I'm glad it's an hour away. That bodes well. Right, so tonight, yes, PDF Expert, let me know if you use it. Let me know in the chat. I'm not sure if you would have heard of PhotosRevive. It was something I found this week, and it kind of followed on from something we did a good few weeks back, so I thought I'd throw it in. Last week, we talked about halftone, and I said there was a setting in there for scan lines. Now, I had done a demo on scan lines ages ago, and I did it in Photoshop because Affinity wasn't even thought of back then, and it was a nightmare to do. So I said, well, it's got that option, so it should work brilliantly, and I had a go with it this week. Pretty cool. So I've thrown that in. Now, also a few weeks back, when we were looking at me using Omni Outliner, which I'll admit is horrifically expensive, more expensive than I recalled. I didn't pay for it originally, you know. It came with my Mac, completely free, and they let me upgrade from that version, so I've never actually paid the full price for it. But now I've actually looked at the price. You're all totally correct. Horrendously expensive. So I found a free one, and that's what we'll be looking at. Then we've got the freebies. There's loads of freebies this week. Really high quality freebies. Make sure you are poised to grab the links. Comic Creation Kit Part 4. We are onto a completely new topic. And then there is a weird unboxing of something that's unboxed, but it's still an unboxing. Honestly, it is. Okay, but before we do all that, we have the week's excitement. Never a dull moment here. I swear there is never a dull moment. Saturday in particular, don't you think, Mike?
I'm saying nothing.
No, I bet you're saying nothing. Saturday was fabulous. We went out for the day. Now, I know it's looking a little bit staid and very British, sort of Downton Abbey. No. That is Goresworth Hall in deepest Cheshire. That's their lake, you know, as they do. But we were there for a concert. In their garden, they put concerts on. We bagged front row seats. They are said front row seats being bagged. You'll see the sellotape as Mike literally spot welded the stuff to it. But who are we going to see? Oh, hang on. I've got a message here from Melinda. First time. Not sure how you got here exactly what we're doing. You love it. Excellent. Glad you do. What we do, we learn things about Mac apps. But before we do that, we have this crazy business of catching up with MacBites headquarters. And if you think us booking seats for this concert was amazing, I'll let you know. It was a Queen concert, so it was a tribute act. And for those of you who know Mike, he really got into the swing of it. That's Mike in the middle. You'll notice the strategic plate. Be very, very grateful for that. Because that skirt was mighty short. And yes, he's already been told several times he needs to do something about the bra. Believe you me, they had a mind of their own. No, it was a fantastic Queen tribute act. This was actually the guy being Freddie, who was fantastic. You'll see two people behind him. He's not got three arms. Oh, bless them. They were fantastic. I don't know where they'd come from. Hadn't seen them at one of those gigs before, but they were probably in their late teens and they both had Down syndrome. And they followed him everywhere. And the one in the little yellow jacket actually had his own microphone and he was singing away with them. They were fantastic. That's Freddie as he came along the front row, which was where I was, so I got some fantastic photos. Mike was having a fabulous time down where they were all dancing. And it was a fantastic night. They did all of the greatest. That was the view I had, so you see I had a pretty decent view until...
Nobody's saying anything in the chat.
They're stunned looking at you in your outfit until...
Now they realise that's my usual Saturday.
Yeah, that's just you on a Saturday night, really, isn't it? Yeah. You can always rely on the great British weather. It rained. Not until about 10 minutes before the end. But we carried on regardless. Freddie sang Singing in the Rain, and we all watched with umbrellas. So it was a fantastic night. We did, however, have to dash home because we had a house guest who was waiting for us at home. But fantastic, fantastic night. Sunday, Graham, brace yourself. Now, if you are new, and apparently we have new people with us, at the end of every show, we say we're going off to have something to eat. And then we have a quick, what are you having to eat session. Now, what does Graham always say? Graham's very partial to a cherry bakewell. So Sunday night came round. I don't particularly watch the TV that much. We don't have a TV. But of course I can get on the iPlayer. Graham, what was on? I have never seen this programme before. It's called Inside the Factory. But this particular episode, Sunday night, cherry bakewells. They'd gone to the Mr. Kipling's factory and we saw the entire process of how they put the cherry bakewells together. Oh, it had to be seen to be believed. Now, I've got a link for this. If you're in the UK or you've got a VPN, you could watch this programme and see the cherry bakewells being put together. I just thought that was so fantastic. We've had many laughs about the cherry bakewells that Graham and his bears have. We also, of course, locally have that huge restaurant that has even bigger cherry bakewells. You can never have cherry bakewells that are too big. These are baby cherry bakewells by comparison. But that was the programme that was on Sunday night. It was cherry bakewell night. I can't believe you missed it, Graham. Mike's got the link to put into the iPlayer. You need to see that programme. It was wall-to-wall cherry bakewells and I was rolling on the floor laughing. But Lola stayed with us. I put Lola Day, but actually she was with us virtually all week. That is the I want to go for a walk face. This is the I don't want to go home from my walk face. Until she was tempted with toys. So we had a fabulous week. If you are new and you are wondering what do we do borrowing dogs, we used to have a dog that was exactly the same breed. She's a girl, ours was a boy. But other than that, they are identical. She belongs to a family that lives very close by, and they were away. And we got an emergency call. Can you look after her? Can we look after her? Just bring her round. Bring her round. We are inveterate dog sitters. So we had Lola virtually all week. You have never had a cherry bakewell. We'll sort one out for you. Where are you based?
I just asked. Find her a local supplier.
We'll find a local supplier. We're still tempting Graham with the local one that's absolutely huge. So we'll sort that out. I've never had a cherry bakewell either because I'm actually gluten intolerant. So I've nibbled at the icing and that was about it, but it was a long time ago. So I haven't had a cherry bakewell either. Now, Friday, that would be today. If you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, you'll know what I've been up to. It's iPad update day. So that was what I was doing, updating iPads all day. Look at them. Wasn't just me. Mike was doing his as well. So how many did you have? 2?
I've only done one.
You've only done the one. I decided to go for it, do them all at the same time.
Yeah, but there's a reason for that. It won't let me log into work if I don't upgrade.
Oh dear. Southern California, that might be a bit of an issue for the Cherry Bakewells. Mike, find a supplier in Southern California.
Southern California.
Oh dear.
Cherry.
So that was today. Now, news this week about Mac stuff. So let's get on to Mac stuff. Much excitement because I use PDF Expert. Mike uses PDF Expert. We need to know, do you use PDF Expert? There was fantastic news. There was an update. Much happiness. And then bad news. It's gone subscription. Worst news? $50 or £50 a year. Yeah. Sharp intake of breath with that one. And Mike said straight off, I'm going to give it 2 minutes and then I'm going to go on to the review pages and see what people have got to say. And they had lots to say, didn't they, Mike?
They did.
Yes. They weren't happy with it being subscription either. So, yes, good news, it's been updated. It has got some new features, but now it's really complicated. Good evening, Neil. Oh, the Great British Baking Show. The Great British Baking Show is now on Channel 4, I think. I don't watch it, never did. But I know the one you mean. Is it that Bake Off?
Yeah.
The Bake Off thing. Yes, it went to Channel 4, which is weird. Loads of adverts, and the catch-up's a nightmare, so I don't tend to bother.
That link's for you, by the way, Melinda.
Right, okay.
Cherry Bakewell.
Cherry Bakewells. You can actually buy them. In dollars from Amazon. Awesome. Well, you've got to try one now. You've got to try one. So what
Buy
have the...
new from $11.99. Reused $11.99.
They'll be Graham's. Graham, are you recycling? You're recycling your Cherry Bakewells to the States. Can I get on with my PDF Expert? Yes, because you'll need to know if you want to update or not. It's complicated now. Right, if you are a completely new user, the good news is you now don't have to pay at all to get a certain subset of features, which are the ones on the left. So you can manage your files and folders, you can work from the cloud, you can read your PDFs, annotate your PDFs and fill out forms, and that's completely free. That is new, because until now, PDF Expert was paid for. Now, if you've used version 6, so you actually bought version 6, you get all of those 5 features and a few more. But when version 6 came out, which from memory was about 18 months ago, there was an optional in-app purchase. And at the time, that gave you certain extra features. And I remember paying for it. So for added complication, there's now, as you can see here, 4 options with this. Now, can I just make absolutely clear at this point, we're talking about the iOS version. Forget the desktop for the moment. So if you bought version 6, which was one price, and then you got the in-app purchase as well, you get a subset of features and 4 extra ones. So you get the ability to edit PDF text, edit the images, add links to PDFs, and redact PDFs. So that's what you would get right now if you had bought version 6 and got the version 6 in-app purchase, which is where I'm at and where Mike's at. But that takes us on to this subscription. Now, the subscription is, as it says here, users with a pro subscription. Now, the extra features, as I scroll this up, there's actually very few that are only available for the pro subscription. In fact, there's just the 3. You get the ability to convert to PDF, reduce the PDF file size, and create your own tool set. And what they mean by that is it's not you adding any kind of tool you like, unfortunately. What it is the ability to edit the interface of the app. And that's all you get for your $50. Now, obviously, if you've never bought it before, you are getting the other stuff, which is in column 3 there, the ability to redact and add links and edit the images and the text. I just think this is getting very complicated now. And I've looked at that and I thought, well, I bought the in-app purchase for version 6, and I wanted to support them, and I wanted to have the greatest range of features, and I wouldn't be averse to paying something, but I think that's a hefty subscription. Another feature they're lauding is they've changed the icon. And I thought, really? Yes, it's changed from the one on the left to the one on the right. Now, what do we think? What do you think of that? I think they need to be incredibly clear what the position is regarding the desktop version. It doesn't mention it. It's not been updated, and it's not mentioned in the subscription. Good evening, Johnny. And I think by comparison to other apps that have gone subscription, such as Ulysses, which is a very good app to compare this with, because it has a desktop app and it has iOS apps, and there's a syncing service going on and it accesses files. So it's not a PDF editor, but in terms of functionality and platforms, I think it's a good comparison. And by comparison to that, it's expensive. Ulysses is available for iOS, so you've got your iPhone, iPad, and your desktop Mac. I pay $26.99 a year for it. I think Mike pays $36.99 a year.
No idea.
Well, I was grandfathered on it, which was another issue. I had actually bought the iPhone app, the iPad app, and the desktop app. Yeah. So I was grandfathered, and I will be grandfathered on that as long as I keep paying. So it wasn't for 1 year. Because I'd bought the apps previously, they just put me on this $26.99, and that's what I pay. They also gave me something like a 3 or 4 month trial. In fact, it could have been more. And I remember finally succumbing to it and paying for the subscription about the 28th of December. So I think they mentioned it in the September. So I had a good few months completely free to make my mind up. Like Graham says, it's got to be coming. The desktop one's got to be coming. But is it included? Because at this stage, there is no mention of that. And that was one of the first things that struck me. In fact, it's not now a bad deal for those who have purchased, as long as you don't subscribe. Because when I looked at what I would get, you actually get a lot for your previous support, but you don't get any cheaper subscription to ease the pain. Like I said, Ulysses have this grandfathered subscription rate, and that's £10 cheaper than the standard subscription rate, which is worth bothering. And the only extra features you're getting is the ability to convert files to PDF on iOS, reduce the file size, and customise the interface. I wasn't impressed with that, not one little bit. The new interface is very light as well, whereas the old one had a nice dark interface. I wasn't pleased with that. So let me catch up here. Desktop version. Yeah, the desktop version, it has not been updated. That's the issue. This new one is the iOS one. What made it worse for me was Mike has 2 accounts. It's a long story that we do not need to go into. And he couldn't remember which account he'd bought the app on. Turns out he'd bought it on an account that he now would prefer to retire, but we all know the issues with merging Apple IDs. What they've done is, if you go back and you try and find your purchase subscription, your purchase invoice for version 6, it won't say version 6. It will say version 7. So version 6 for iOS has now been retired, and you don't get an option. You're using version 7. Well, I thought that was a bit off, but that's just me. Yes, you're back to capitalising on iPad, maybe. I do agree the desktop one for Mac will be coming. Whether it's included in that $50 subscription, I don't know. Just imagine if they want another $50 for the Mac. And really, this is one of the situations. What are you giving me for this subscription? Now, they're saying that you'll get the extra features, but they're not there yet. You want the money today, but the extra features, apart from the 3 that are listed there, are not there yet. So what they've mentioned in particular is OCR. So OCR on an iPad. I'm guessing to do that, it will need to be sent to the cloud and sent back, which is a kind of service, an ongoing service, because other than that, I'm not too enamoured. of paying a subscription for something that's just a static feature set. But maybe that's just me. That is a very good point, Melinda. You can convert to whatever you like, but not PDF. It would be nice to have the ability to create PDF files on an iPad in a predictable way. In other words, no matter what app you are in, that there was one way to make a PDF and the ability to reduce file size and stuff. But I can't help thinking that you're being expected to pay one heck of a premium to do this on an iPad. And as I pointed out to Mike, if their stance is, well, it's an iPad, you know, so it's less than a computer. And now look what you can do with our app. Yes, fine. But Apple are selling this as a replacement for a laptop. And you're now making it that, yeah, well, you can do that, but you'll pay through the nose to do it. When actually on the Mac, the version for the Mac is cheaper than 1 year's subscription. It's been around for a long time. You can actually get it reduced. There's usually a deal where you can get at least 40 to 50% off. And I know when Mike got his, he used one of those deals. So it's certainly a way around that, isn't it? I've not done the upgrade thing yet. Let's just say that. I have not done the upgrade thing yet. And given if they're the only 3 features, I'm not too sure whether I would. But having said that, I am in the fortunate position that I did upgrade to version 6 and I did get the in-app purchase. So they're giving me a little bit more than they would be if you just had the other one. But I thought that was, at first it was like, oh, that's great news. And then as I read on, I thought this is not great news. So that's where I'm at with it. Your mileage may vary, in which case let me know in the chat. Let me know. But an app that I did find for the desktop called PhotosRevive. And I thought, that looks interesting. That looks interesting, I thought. The reason that it looked interesting was a good few shows ago, I'm going to put Mike right on the spot now, and he can go and find out when exactly that was. I had a request on After Hours to demonstrate colouring black and white images. So particularly older black and white images that were taken as black and white. And the one that I chose to use was an image that we found on Pixabay of Ingrid Bergman. This may be ringing bells for you, if you recall. Now, it took quite a while as a demonstration. It must have taken easy an hour. And I went through it, and at the end of it, what you had was a pretty good colorization. But it takes time. And not everybody, you know, a lot of people want to be able to do that, but not actually sit and fiddle with it for 6 months to skill up on actually how to do it.
After Hours 9.
After Hours 9, it was a long time ago. But you can go back and watch that if you want. Where PhotosRevive comes in, it's an inexpensive app for the Mac desktop. It is $4.99 and it promises to colour images in one go. I thought this should be interesting. So I gave it a go. And you know what? It wasn't bad. So let's have a look at it. Right. Let's revive. And it's opened up on the wrong screen. Fabulous. Good start. So it opens up. It, as it says there, it will support images in RAW, PNG, JPEG or TIFF. And it's as simple as just dragging and dropping an image in there. Now, the image that we used last time was this image. So you can download that from Pixabay. Did I put the link in, Mike? If not, it'll be in number 9. And so you can load exactly the same image and work along with it. That's the one I'll be doing because that's the one that we used last time. In fact, I'm just wondering if that was the one we did last time and it was number 9. Wouldn't it be nice if I could find it? Would that I was that organised that we could find it. Although I do have Affinity Photo here. Yes, that's the one. I'm not seeing it. But I did also do that one, which is me. That's me with my granddad. You remember I coloured the car green and then I coloured the car blue. So I've got some images there to have a play with. So we've got the Ingrid Bergman one for a start. So let's drag her on there and drop. And I haven't touched anything yet. It has had a look at the image and that's what it has suggested. Now, skin-wise, it's possibly a little bit on the tangerine side. But the good news is you're not limited to that. You can go in and edit it. What they're giving you there is a starting point. It's not bad. I think the hair needs a bit of work. It's still sort of pretty black and white across the top of the head. The jacket and the blouse, well, some of it's brown at the back and some of it's blue at the front. But what you can do, you can make global adjustments at the top. So you've got your contrast for a start. You can take your contrast down, you can take your contrast up. And as soon as you start moving that, it does twang back to the middle. As soon as you start moving that, I've clicked it and I've pulled, it takes away the colour. So if you did want to enhance that, the contrast, then the colour comes back when you release it. Now, in that image, it might work better if it was a little bit brighter. It might, you never know. On the other hand, maybe not. I think if you do that, you're going to need to bring some contrast into it. But I think this one's working not too bad around the middle. But we'll make a couple of changes and see how we go. You can also change the highlights. So that's increasing the highlights or making it darker on there. That one's giving you the colour's a bit umpa-lumpa, but it's more even on the face. And then you've got the shadow. So you can make the shadow darker or you can make the shadow lighter. So those are the global changes that you can make. Now, as soon as I start doing that and making it lighter, you can see I'm bringing in some kind of artifacts in the background. I would guess that's because that could not possibly be a digital image. It must have been scanned, and I think what we're seeing is the scan artifacts. So I think they pretty much need to be left around the middle, which was where they were. Now, in terms of the actual changes, because it did that itself, which is good if it's spot on, not so good if it's not. But in terms of the changes, what you can do, let's have a look at the lips there. They're very brown, but I can put a spot on it just by clicking and then start to adjust it around there. So I could take that up. Now, obviously, that's changing the skin to pink, so I need to be quite subtle with it. But I think it would be faster than what we did last time. Now, I think last time we changed this blouse to a greenish colour. So if I move across slightly, yeah, not quite that green, but you get the idea. It is making a change, but you'll notice it has done something that we don't want. If I take it across so it's very green, it's turned the skin green as well around the neck. So you're going to start to need to either be incredibly subtle as you're doing it, or put a dot in there and change that so it's got more of a skin tone to it. And you can do that by sliding the A and B here, or choosing a colour. So if you think the skin tone is more like that, you can actually click that. Or if you would want the skin purple for whatever the reason. So you can click these to choose that. And you can put as many of those on as you need. So if we go onto the jacket, and I think we had the jacket blue at one point, you can see it's colorizing the continuous tone that it finds. So you have to put multiple little dots on there and then colour them in. So let's try and make that a little bit more blue as well. So we now have a blue jacket from a brown jacket. And we wanted more on the hair. So choose a bit of the hair and make that browner. So maybe that brown colour there. And that really improves the hair across the top. I would say with this one, the face is where the focus is going to be. And I think this image would benefit from being done manually. I really do. Because if I go in and try and put some sort of eyeshadow on, in like a purpley colour, it changes the entire tone of her face. We do get purple across the eye, and I could go over to the other one and make that purpley too. But it does change more than I probably want to change. And it starts to bleed into the hair, which you wouldn't get if you were doing it manually. But as a starting point, for someone with zero skills, she said, looking at Mike, who might want to colour an image and can't remember what on earth I had to say in episode 9, it's a great starting point. It could certainly be done quickly. At that point, you can save the image. So the image will come out for saving. We'll put that on the desktop. And that's the image. So we have got a kind of purpley eye thing. We have got a blue jacket and a green shirt and brown hair, although we are looking a little bit pinky purple at the beginning, you know, at the front of the hairline there. But not bad, because the original image was completely black and white. So we at least have a coloured image. Now, that was the one that I tested it with. But let's go crazy. Let's go and get my racing car image of me as a child. Let's see what it makes of that. It's having a think about it. Hopefully it'll be loading it in the background. I've got my red border, so it should be reading it in. Doesn't look like it actually is, though. Still thinking about it. Tell you what, it's probably faster if I come out of this. Let's force quit it and open it up again. That'll probably be faster. Right, wrong screen. Racing car. Because it opened it up quite quickly before. Right, okay, let's make that full screen so we can have a look. That's not bad. The skin tone on that's pretty decent, apart from the fact it's cut me off at the hands. I have no idea why it's done that. But face-wise and hair-wise, that's not bad. It's subtle. The eyes aren't right. My eyes are green, not that kind of brown, but not bad. Not bad. Let me show you what the original looked like. So it has managed to pick up some skin tones from that, and it has managed to do it fairly subtly. It just seems to have got confused with this bracelet and left the hands then black and white. But let's see what we can do with it. We should be able to go in and put a little dot on there. And let's see what kind of colour we want from there. We really want it to match the other one as near as possible. That's not bad. That's made it a little bit pinky. I think I need to go onto the fingers and kind of do the same. Don't want to overdo it. Not bad. Not bad. Now, the car itself was red, so I need to grab a bit of the car. No, it was either red or racing green. I can't remember which now. But look at me. I was so young. It wasn't pink. No, I wouldn't have gotten it if it was pink. There we go. That's not bad. I'd have to change the wheel to black. So I'd have to make that quite dark. Can I bring that down? I don't want it that colour. I want to make it dark. I'm not getting much in the way of help here with blacks. No, not getting there at all. But that is not bad, actually. It's colorising quite nicely. So let's add more red at the front. So I've got another dot at the front. So really, as you're putting these pins in, you're limiting the impact and the area that is impacted by the colours that you make. So this bit here, for instance, is still too browny. So I'd want to up the red in that, but not the skin. But it will up the red in the front here, but as you can see, it's not touched the skin because you've got these points in there as well. Now, I have no idea what it would do with the eyes. Can we zoom in? Oh, that's not a zoom button. That's not helpful, is it? We've got rotate. We do not appear to have zoom. If I can just grab the eye and make that greener. But I don't... No. That's not what I want at all. I just want the eyes green. So I might have to put more than one pin in it. And it would be very helpful if I could zoom. That would be very helpful. But I'm not seeing that at the moment. Let's hope that's a little bit green. I'd also need more red on the back of this car. Because that's very brownish. So let's bring the red out in that. And another one there. And up the red in that. It's a lot easier than doing it by hand, but doing it by hand will give you the best result. But as a starting point, because when we did the car, it was tricky. It was a large area and we were doing it all by hand. I would probably stick to doing it by hand, but what do we think? What do we think? Yep, there was only the hands it didn't actually manage, and I think that was the bracelet. Interestingly, it got Grandad's hand, and yet... he's got a jacket on. So I can understand it getting his face. And he's got that issue that gents have with their jackets. When you kind of bend down, it goes up at the back, and it coped with all of that. The only bit it didn't cope with was just my hands. But that's not bad. That's actually not bad. That's not the colours I think I did. I think I was a little bit more subtle with it. But it's a starting point. And, you know, and if you want to play around with it, if you want to sit here and make other bits very, very different colours. Now, what's happening is something that's that tone, but over here, is changing. But if you go into there and change that back to what you want to change it to, that will take it away again without affecting this bit over here. So that's pretty much what I've worked out with it. I think with a bit of practice, it wouldn't be bad. Depends how confident you are doing it with Affinity Photo. But we'll do a save image and we'll take that out. I've not coloured all of it, but we'll put that on the desktop. We will close that down. Yeah, because I've just saved it.
To know where it was taken.
Where was that taken? Well, Grandad didn't like going far from home. My guess would be Blackpool. I reckon that must have been a day out in Blackpool when I was about 2.5 to 3. Something like that.
Yeah, the kid in the background is either a change machine or one of those grabby machines. Yeah, with a hand.
Yeah, I think it was like a dancing thing that you put money in and whatever it was danced. But when you look at that, I always think, I mean, Mum had me done up, honestly. Look at the state of that little bolero jacket. But I look at that kid and I think that is definitely mid-70s, isn't it? You know, the little socks and the shoes and the short skirt. Kids would be in jeans these days. So, yeah, it's old. It's old, I'll admit. That's the colourised one, which I didn't overdo. And that's the black and white one. I didn't go in and actually control the colour very well in that. That was pretty much, apart from the hands that I did and the car and that blue splodge at the back, which needs work. That's pretty much what it came up with, which I don't think's bad. Not from the original. That's the original. I would have thought it would get confused with this jumper and the dress because that's quite close to the skin tone. But not bad. $4.99. $4.99 that in the App Store. Might be worth a punt to have a play with. Probably something like I say. The more pins you put on it and the more work you do with it, the more accurate it would be. What I would say is if you're prepared to spend that kind of time with it, you'd get a more controllable, predictable result doing it by hand. But knowing that demo took over an hour and that one probably took about 15 minutes, you might want to try that one. So that was, let's have a look, PhotosRevive, it was called. Odd name, because I was thinking PhotosRevive, but never mind. You will find that in the App Store. Now, the next thing. Last week, we looked at halftone, and we discussed scanlines. Halftone's the pattern, and it's usually dots, but Affinity Photo had an extra setting, and that extra setting had lines in it, which would enable you to do something like that, which I have done before, but I did it in the most convoluted way because it was the only way I could do it. But Affinity Photo gives you a very good way of creating images like that. So let's go in and have a look at that. So Affinity Photo. Right, that's the background image. And I think I got that from... Is the link in there, Mike? I think I got it from Pixabay. Just a computer screen. Now, it doesn't matter what kind of computer screen it is either. I've gone for one that's got text on it, but it really doesn't matter.
No, it came from Envato Elements.
Is it an Envato Elements one? Oh dear. Envato Elements is a paid for thing. Let me see if... Well, any would do. I'm just having a look at what I've got in here. But those are the ones I've got. Anything with a computer screen on it. Tell you what, Mike, find me one on Pixabay that looks decent with it at a slight angle. And I'll do it twice. Right, all I have done is put an overlay on that image and then put the text on it. Now, the colour's looking a bit odd. It's to do with being zoomed in. You see it changing as I zoom in? That's to do with the screen refresh rate, and I'm only running at 1600 by 900 here, so you can see what's going on. So that's why it looks a little bit odd. But let's start out and give that a go. Yeah, that does look identical. Try and get one with just a monitor in the background, maybe with somebody pointing at it. Right. I have a black background and nothing else at the moment. And I am in Affinity Photo. It would not matter at this stage if it was Affinity Designer and you then took it into Affinity Photo. But I just have a black background. I also have in there the finished product, which is that. That's what we'll be creating in here. But I'm going to do it from scratch. You will need some text. So text tool and click, and then type your text, which for me was fatal error. And obviously I would be guessing it's put that in black. And I would want it in a very limey green, like that, which I've actually got over here in my Apple thing. Why are you looking a bit weird? Never mind. Now, the font I've chosen to use is Myriad Pro. Now, Myriad Pro may be on your system. If it is, congratulations, because it's a paid-for font. Doesn't matter which particular font you use. Obviously, some will work better than others. That's not a good look if you're trying to get it on a computer screen. This kind of thing. But anything that's chunky would work. So Arial would work. It should be way up here. Avenir is a bit too skinny. And something like a scripty font wouldn't look good. But Arial itself, you could get away with that. Or Arial Black, anything like that. So I'm leaving it at Myriad Pro. And I've got it a nice green colour. Now, when I've done this demonstration before and I've used Photoshop for it, it's a long, convoluted way of working, and it's very, very different than in here, because in here, in Affinity Photo, you don't really have to get down and dirty with it. And what I mean by that is, in Photoshop, you've got to make patterns and be filling things with patterns, actually making a pattern by hand. You don't have to do any of that in here. What you need to do before you start, though, is Command and J, which is your friend. It will duplicate it. And the reason that we will use Command and J is because when we put the halftone on it, it will bleed the colour out of it. So I've got this one behind it that's my backup. I can turn it off, but I need a backup. We will be returning to the backup to get it to look decent. So this is the text that says fatal error. What we need to do is make sure that's got lines across it. Now, we looked at two ways of applying a halftone last time. Halftone is in your filters, in colours, in somewhere down there, halftone. But if you do that, you are actually editing pixels on that layer. It is destructive. You do not want it to be destructive. You want to work non-destructive, you need to go to Layer, Live Filter Layer. Colours, halftone. I know halftone's at the top of that list, it was at the bottom of the other. I don't know why either. Just the way that they work. So I'm applying a halftone to it, and what I'm getting is the default halftone, which looks nothing like we want it to look like. That's because first of all, you set the screen, whether you want it monochrome, colour, which isn't great either, whether you want it lines, which we do, or you want it circular, which we don't. So that's the choice you make in here. So we're looking at lines, which was the one we couldn't look at last week. Now, once you've selected line or monochrome, you'll see that the two bottom options are dimmed out. They only become alive when you have a colour halftone, which we don't want. But we're not going to worry about the fact it's totally the wrong colour. We're just going to try and get the cell size to work so it looks like the lines you would see on a computer monitor. So something like that. You can alter the contrast if you want, but to be honest, more contrast looks better. And that's all you need to do. You now have your scan lines. Obviously at this stage, totally the wrong colour. But remember, we had a backup. We had a backup there. that is the right colour. So if this layer interacted with the layer behind it in some kind of way, so change the blend mode of it, you can see you get very different results depending on the blend mode you choose. But there are very, very many of these that would look all right. Let's go for, let's try multiply. Multiply works all right. That's not bad. Even one of these, which is the one? Not that one. Vivid light. Vivid light works well as well. So particularly any of those, that just eyeball it, whichever looks okay. What isn't right at the moment is when you think about it, what that would look like on a computer screen. And there would be like a glow to it. Now we have this at the background, which is still at the moment completely untouched. What we could do with is applying a glow to it, which you can do non-destructively with your effects, layer effects, which helpfully is opened up off screen. There we go. You can have an outer glow on it. So put a tick in a box, choose the colour, and the colour would be, you know, the bright green. Change the radius, and you should see what's happening in the background. It's looking like that. Now, the problem with doing that is, oh no, actually, that's not too bad at the moment. So we'll apply that as a glow, and you can change the intensity of it. So, you know, it's really far too much. But we want that to look quite natural, just fuzzy at the edges. Now, the reason that the lines have disappeared is because we turned that off, but now you can turn that back on. But that still doesn't look natural to me. It's not the kind of glow that you would get on a computer screen. This layer that is the glow needs to be more gentle. And for that, you can use another layer, live filter layer, this time a blur. Now, a motion blur might actually work for that, but pretty much a Gaussian blur is your friend. So if we just blur that, you see what's happening in the background. Don't worry about what's happening in the foreground. We'll fix that. But what's happening in the background, and to be honest, you could go as blurry as you like with that, because we can fix it in post. So that's not bad, actually. It looks well overdone, and it looks like there's a problem. And I will explain what the problem is. The problem is, that's what the text looks like if there is no green behind it. If there's green behind it, you're thinking, well, it shouldn't look like kind of blue in the middle. But what's happening is more of the black is showing through, and that's making it look blue. That's the problem with it. But we could duplicate that layer again and take off the blur. And now we've got the best of both worlds. Now we've got the lines and we've got the blur. The blur at that stage is a little bit too much. But you can fix that by just taking the opacity of the blur down until you are happy with it, until it's just blurred enough. You could even extend the lines out of that and do any other kind of thing you like with it. But that's enough just to show you, because all we're trying to do is get something with some lines on it to show you. One other thing to show you with this blur is, because it's now an editable blur, if we double click on it, if you think it's too much, you can dial it back. It's completely editable. Which means I would do that all the time, to be honest. Even if you think it's right, you could always go back in and change that. So, is that on the right one? It is, isn't it? That's the one I'm working with. Yes, there we go. Opacity, 44%. So I can take that up, I can take it down. The text is now on another layer. I've got two layers interacting to create the text effect. Okay, so I've got my text. In my other image, I've got a monitor, and I would like to put the text on there. So all I need to do in here is make sure that I have got my background. So I'll leave that where it is, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate it. And that way I can, I'll call that complete. So we're not taking the complete one. What we're doing is the one that I've just done. We are grouping them together, Command and W, and putting, Command and G, putting in the fatal error. We'll put message. Right. Copy. That's all I'm doing with it. I'm going into this image and then pasting it into that image. And there's the screen. Now, there are differences in the size of the image, and that's what's making it look like it's gone white. In fact, why has it gone white? It should not have gone white. Doing weird things on me, but as I zoom out, it does even more weird things. Never mind. Principles there. Right, but that doesn't look great, just slammed on the top of there, does it? You're never going to get away with the fact that that is about right. No, you need to do something else with that. Yet another layer, live filter layer, but this time distort. Now we've looked at distort. We actually looked at pinch and punch last week. I think we've looked at twirl as well. This time we're going for perspective. So we're going to go into perspective and it puts a grid on it. I can pretty much move that out of the way so I can see my image. Because what I actually need to do is make it look like that fatal error text is on that screen. And for that, I'm going to grab the corners and you see what happens? It gives you a grid and all you need to do is move the corners. Now, I'm going to have to continually adjust this because I can't actually see the edge of the screen. So at the moment, I'm making a guess where it is. For instance, this one, well, let's do this one. I know it's down there somewhere, but I'm not sure where. How far down here is it? Well, actually, if I line up this edge with the edge of that, so I need to move that a little bit more, that will give me a good guess. And this one needs to be lined up along there, which means that that's not quite right. I need that. So it's the left-hand side's lining up with the white line on the left, and the bottom edge is lining up with the bottom edge. So that's not quite right there. That needs to line up more with that. That's looking better. And this bit up here, well, that can come right back in and line up with the top of there. And that's it. At that point, I can say merge. And my grid should go away. You having a think about it? Let's go back and get that tool. There we go. So I've now put my fatal error in the right place. Obviously, at this stage, it's still not merging in very well. But I can do things with that. I can either change the blend mode. So it's over the top of it like this. Turn it round like that. But you can see that my error text and the text on the screen match. So line by line, they are lining up. So I can create all kinds of weird effects with that. What I actually did was not change the blend mode. What I did was pull out the black background. Oh, that didn't work too well either, did it? Did I? No, I know what I did. I left it alone. Right, the reason that if I pull out the black background, it twangs back to being square is that layer there is acting as a mask on everything inside it. And that black is no longer inside it. But if I pop that black back in, then it is. It's now over my text. So I'd need it underneath my text. But that's how it works. So I actually opened up the group and went into there to look at that rectangle. And all I did was change the opacity of it. So you could see some of the background. Like that. Now that's looking almightily weird. What's going on here? Why have I got that line there? Where's that line coming from? Ooh, that's weird. Because I know that worked. There's the other one. That's the one that I did in rehearsals and that worked. So what is going on here? Hang on. Possibly these need to be in a group of their own. Maybe that would be it. But you get the idea. So as long as the text is lined up properly, So what I mean by that, if you look at the top line of the letters, they are lined up with the ones on the screen behind there. Now, Mike, did you manage to find another one?
No.
Oh, that's not good, is it? Let me see if I can find another one. Let's get into Firefox. You look through Pixabay. What did you look for? That's the trouble. They all look like flat screens these days. Let's try flat screen monitor. Flat screen monitor. Let's have a look. Well, it's not bad. It doesn't matter if some of it's missing, because these are a bit... Put that one in Notion and I'll pull it through from there. Mike's got a link for me. So let me whip and get this link. Thank you. Isn't it good when he can put it in and then I get it? There we go. Right, so we've got an Apple monitor behind us. Could we get it on there? Well, yeah, you can. It doesn't matter what angle the monitor's at. Now, what I will say with this one is that line there that we're seeing of light reflecting off it, you might have to add that back. But we will download the big version of that. And I will open it in Affinity Photo. Oh, the poor machine. It's not even 10 o'clock yet. Don't do that. Come on. I didn't want you to put it in that image. Crying out loud. Wouldn't let me do an open in. All right, we'll cheat. We'll drag it onto the icon. That'll do it. There we go. So yes, it's got a bit of a reflection on it there. But remember what we've got. That's the one we're working with, which is that group there. So we will copy and paste. And have you brought anything in at all? Are you thinking about it? Oh, I have no idea where you put it. How big's this image? Not seeing it. Not seeing it. Let's try again. Let's take the one from in here that we've just done, because that worked when we copied and pasted it. Right, there's the image I'm trying to get it on the top of. Much better. Right, it's too big, but not a problem. We will scoot it down to a manageable size before we start distorting it to that screen. That's possibly about right. So that's what we brought in. That's what you've seen me create. But we need to layer, live filter layer, distort perspective. That gives us the grid. And then we need to marry it up with that monitor. So start with the corner that you can see and get that in the right place. Grab this one and try and get that in the right place. Now, obviously, you can't see the top of the monitor. But what you can see is the line of the monitor edge. So just line it up to that. And when you're working on this side over here, do exactly the same. You can see that one there. Now you can see that you're not quite right at the bottom. So you do sometimes have to keep reworking this. And now I can tell you that that one there, definitely not right, because I've got this huge gap at the top there. So this needs to be further over, like that. And this top edge of my grid needs to line up with that top edge of the screen there. So to do that, I need to see the other corner of it. And I've also, as you can see there, got far too much showing through. So let's pull that back as well. We don't want to see any of that. So I reckon we're about right with that lot. Just this one to sort out. And to do that, I need to see both the top edge of the screen under my top edge. And I reckon we're not far off there. About there would be my guess. Let's merge that. Click away. I would need to tidy up the edges, but the edges aren't actually that bad. I've noticed this with Affinity Photo. As you zoom in and out, you tend to get different edges around it. I would put an edge around it, but I'd make it match better than that. But yep, it works on virtually any image. Right, let me have a look what's going on in the chat. Oh, late to the party, we can't have that. Dad's taxiing, were you? Do I happen to know Catherine Shelton? No, I don't, I'm afraid. Glad you're enjoying it. So, that one will work on anything. You could put, how I use that a lot is not to do stuff like that. What I do is take screenshots and put that on monitors. That's actually easier than doing that. So if I took a screenshot, what have I got a screenshot of, Mike? How about a screenshot of my blog in Firefox? Or better still, MacBites. All right, MacBites, there we go. So I will take a screenshot of that, which I will do with Snagit only because I need to know where it's going. So let's take a screenshot there. Did you just take a screenshot? You did. Awesome. Right, there's my screenshot. So I can lose that. And I want to put that on there. Very, very straightforward. I'll attempt to drag it in, see what it makes of it. Pretty good. Now this one should actually be easier because it's already the right ratio. You know, that's an iMac behind it. I've just taken a screenshot on an iMac. Exactly the same principle. Live filter layer, distort, perspective, get the grid and drag it across to there. I should probably have started with that one, but that doesn't matter. Ooh, I am way off with this here, aren't I? Way off. Let's just move it up. Sometimes you might think this is never going to work, but it will. It will. You just need to pull it back. You don't have to get it right first time. Chances of that are pretty slim, but just keep working on it and zoom in to get the edges right. So I would put that over the edge like that. And up to the next one. That's slightly off. Let's put that there like that. Now, no point looking for that one because you can't see it. So just make sure this bottom one's right. It's a little bit too far that way. That's better. And then make sure that the edge, the right-hand edge, lines up with it. And make sure you've not gone too far there. That looks about right. And merge. And zoom. And now we've got the MacBites website on there. Very, very, very straightforward. Okay, so that was the scanline one, but also showing you taking the scan lines and putting it in place, so doing a placement. Awesome. So let's minimize that and head back into here because I haven't got a clue what's coming next. Right, Cloud Outliner. Right, if you've not been with us before, there's a story behind this. I was doing a project for a local group that we're part of called Brooklands. And I built a web gallery. And what I needed to do, the group's been around for 58 years, started in 1961. And I wanted to take news stories, social history, and put them on slides, a presentation. And that's what I did. Then, because this was playing while we were having a celebratory meal, not everybody got to see every picture. So I put it on a website. I will show you what that looked like in here. Because we've done this over, I think it's 3 weeks now. The first week I showed building the presentation in Keynote. Second week I put it on here, which is, it's this one here. 700th presentation. Uploaded the presentation. Now, I did upload the presentation, but this is what it actually looks like. So you clicked on the 60s. It took you through to all of the images from the 60s. You just clicked on it and you worked your way through the 400 images that were in the presentation. Yes, it had 400 slides. There we go. Now, that says 6th of June. First session at Abbey Road Studios. Did you notice this week it was a celebration of 50 years since that photograph was taken? So that is what I'm talking about. And what I did was I explained how I did it. And how I did it was the text of each story was in an outline. So let me carry on with the story of how I did it. That's what it looks like. I used Omni Outliner, and I didn't touch my presentation software. I just worked through the stories in an outline, and that is what Omni Outliner looked like. You can see it's opened up to 1961. Those were the stories in 1961. Now you might think, why on earth did you do that? Because you may as well just have gone into Keynote and put them straight in there. It would have been faster. It wouldn't, because as soon as I start taking it into Keynote, I've got to think about what size the text should be and stuff. And I'm going to need an image for each one. So I decided, no, I will get sign off on the stories before I touch Keynote or PowerPoint. And I did it in Omni Outliner because that's the outlining app that I use. But, as I said in the very, very beginning of the opening, I had no idea it had got to the price it had. The Pro version that I use is $100, which I can fully appreciate for an outlining app. You may think like, yeah, I'm not paying that. And I would understand that. I don't actually use Omni Outliner that much. I have so many other applications. Most of the work I do doesn't tend to be in an outline. I know some people use this for taking notes at school, college, notes about books. I don't actually make that many outlines, so it's more historic that I have Omni Outliner. So I got asked the question, is there anything else that's a little bit cheaper? Something that maybe I could afford? Well, I've surpassed myself. Oh yes, there is Cloud Outliner and it is free. I'll just let you savour that idea for a moment. Now I appreciate if I say something's free, there it is, Cloud Outliner, free. You probably think, yeah, it probably looks shocking. Actually, that's the same information. In my opinion, actually looks better. That's the standard view. It's not by any means a crippled application. I will say you get adverts popping up, and that would drive me insane. But there is a Pro version as well. That's what that little red symbol there is there for. It's there to remind you that you could always pay an upgrade. That's the light version, but it also has a lovely dark interface. So I thought I'd show you that application. And then give you good news about the Pro version. So let's have a look at it. Cloud Outliner. I already had the Pro version, but I then went ahead and got this free version, and I thought, well, I'll have a dabble with it. Now, first of all, if I show you that, that's the top level. But, you know, I've already got my stuff in there. But where did that come from? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete it. Move to trash. Are you sure you want to delete it? Yes. Because this is very different in concept, in a good way, to Omni Outliner. So let me show you Omni Outliner. Omni Outliner here works with files. So there was a session I did on Office 2013. That was Affinity Publisher. Here's the after hours stuff. And somewhere in there, I can't even spell Pixelmator, is the years thing that I did. So Omni Outliner works file by file, one outline at a time. In the same way as Word, you open one Word file, one Excel spreadsheet. So it opens up the one file. And that's my file. There it is. I'm wondering why there's a spelling mistake in there, but never mind. Why I think Cloud Outliner's possibly even got the edge over this is, you know, you might want to hide a lot of the information in here to make it focusable. And then if you actually look, that looks really nice, doesn't it? But of course, if you've started working here or somebody else is using Omni Outliner, how do you make that work in a free app? Well, the good news is Omni Outliner is very good when it comes to exporting. It uses a proprietary file format, but you can export it using OPML, which is Outline Processor Markup Language. And the great thing about OPML is lots and lots of other applications understand it. So I'm going to export it to my desktop. It was called Years as an OPML file. So if we imagine somebody else, maybe me, has created a file in OmniOutliner and I'm sending that to you and you don't have OmniOutliner. So I'm going to quit OmniOutliner now. Not interested anymore. What I will do is move that fractionally and show you. There it is. There's the file. What I actually need to do is get that into Cloud Outliner. But one of the fundamental differences between Cloud Outliner and OmniOutliner is it doesn't work in terms of opening files. It has a built-in library. So you can have access to all of your outlines without having to go and find them in a file system. So in concept, think of OmniOutliner as like Word or Excel, and think of Cloud Outliner as something like Evernote, where all your notes are within one interface. All of your outlines would be within one interface. So go to File and go to Open. Point it to the desktop and you will see the JPEGs are dimmed out. It can't read the JPEG files, but this one, this Years export, which is an OPML file, it can read and understand. If you look at this preview at the bottom, and many people ask me, how are you getting that preview? What is that? What is this dark interface that's hanging around your file open dialog? That's called default folder, and it's amazing. And one of the things it does is give me a preview of it. Now, when you look at that preview, you might freak out. Let me zoom in and we'll have a look at it. It looks like code. Well, it is. That very top line says XML, Extended Markup Language. And down underneath, the second line tells it what language it is, OPML version 2.0. And the rest of that file is then a description of the data. And the good news is you don't have to give that a second thought. All you need to do is open it. And at that point, it's opened it. And it is exactly the information that we had in OmniOutliner. Exactly the information. But what's happening over in the sidebar here, we have a folder called Brooklands 196, which is what the group is called. And that's got a folder icon. But this has a Years. It's called Years, and next to it, it has a file icon. At the top, you can create a new file, and it says new outline. But you can also create a new folder. Guess what? Files live in folders. So we could pop the Years one inside the folder, and then you can close it up. So what this is, the sidebar on the left-hand side, is like a mini Finder with all of your outlines in it. So we could... I think I need some water, Mike. And I'm not sure I've even got a glass. Oh, I do. I've got some water here. It's going to be blindingly hot, but never mind. Okay. Let me see what I've got here that maybe or maybe not useful. That might be useful. So I'm going to open this up in OmniOutliner. This was actually delivered many, many moons ago. I bet Graham was there. If we open it up, there's lots of levels within my outline, etc. But I could do exactly the same. File, export. It will have a think about it. That's the date it was delivered, so November 2012. Put it on the desktop. Close down OmniOutliner. And now bring that one in. So File, Open. Point it towards that Office 2013 file. Open that up. There it is. All the checkboxes come through with it. You don't get the colour, but the checkboxes come through with it. And you can start organising your files. So I'll create a new folder, call that Training, and pop that file in there. But you can keep going. So within there, I could create a folder for 2012. And I could put my 2012 training in there and fold that up. So that's something extra that Cloud Outliner has that Omni Outliner doesn't have. Now, you may like that, you may loathe it. If you do client work maybe, and you want to work on their outlines and then put them away and you don't want to see them again, you're going to be annoyed. That's how I felt about Ulysses. I was there saying, I don't want all my Ulysses stuff in one place. I don't want one library. I want lots of little files. But I made it work. I thought, look, that's the way it works. You just need to find a way to make it work. So if there was some files I specifically didn't want to see because they're client-based files, just create another folder and just call it client work. And anything that you don't want to see, just fold that up and pop it right down the bottom. Like that, and fold it up. So at least you would know with this where everything was. So for instance, let's say I'm working in my years in here. Down the bottom, I've got a search. And I mentioned link, and you can see there's nothing there. But I know that that's in there. It's just a matter of finding it. So let's say I go up to training and I try and search for a link in there. Oh, you're not doing it for me. You're not. It's clearly searching across an individual file. So let me open up that file and see if I can find it in there. You going to find it in there? You are. So it's in there. There it is. So it's very different in concept, but it's incredibly powerful. So let's go to the years, which I already had in here. Let's open up 1971. I think there's lots going on in there. Right, you can put your checkboxes in. Do that. You can check the whole lot at 1971 level, which you may have noticed I did in Omni Outliner, and it did not do that. When I put a check in 1971, it did not check all of the others. This one does. You also have in here, so going across the top, you can add new rows. So if I wanted to add another story, and I'm, let's say I'm 1st of September, press enter and you get a new line straight after that level. Go down to the bottom, press enter, you'll get one at the bottom. You can also, though, up here, so let's go and select one of these, and I'll hover over that. You can create a child row, which will indent it under there. So let's say, for instance, in there, I wanted, well, let's put it down the bottom there, that's absolutely fine. Let's say I put in there January, and I wanted to take January, come on, move January to the top of there. So I wanted January within 1971, and then I wanted that story within it. So I drag that up to January, and now I can fold it up. So basically, you can in here do whatever you need to do in terms of structuring it. So you can add a note, a row on the same line, a child row, or an ant row. So if we do an ant row, you get that at a higher level. So that's now, if we fold these up, an ant level would be between 71 and 72. That would make no sense at all, but you could do it if you wanted to do it. You can also, should be able to, where are we going there? I am attempting to get rid of that, and it's not letting me do it, but I can delete it that way. So let's head back in here and tidy up. So we can move that up again to 71. Oh, I can see lots moving here. Oh, Elaine's awesome. I'm liking that. Thank you, Jason. That was a good point for me to just glance over that. Excellent, excellent. Oh, affinity programs. Have we affinited today? We have, haven't we? I don't think we're going back into affinity, but we have affinited. Today we have affinited. Right, so let me tidy this mess up that I've just created. That needs to be in there. That needs to be deleted. You should also notice there, when I right-click to delete one of these things, there is an extra option to add a note, which will add a note underneath it. So note added to this story. So that is maybe, that's the bit that you want to put in the presentation, that bit there. So all I was doing when I made the slides was copy, paste and work on it. But if I wanted to put something in here to remind me, oh, why don't you get an image of X? Then I could put that in as a note. Omni Outliner has that capability, but you've also got that capability in here. You also have options across the top here to move things up and down. So you don't have to remember shortcut keys. You can take the stories up. I think I got all of them in the right order, but if you didn't, then you can reorganize them in there. You can also indent them and outdent them. So you saw me, like that one there, you could move that up a bit and then you could indent it underneath June the 14th. So you've got buttons to do all that across the top. You also have up there the option to add the note, which there is a shortcut key for as well. You have the option to change the font style, the size of it, and you can apply a filter. So if you wanted to filter in there, should we try a filter? Let's say show only the checked rows. That literally gets rid of the rest. It would probably make more sense if you were doing what I was doing, which was building a presentation, to only show the unchecked ones. Show me the ones I've not done, because they're the ones I actually need to be thinking about doing. So let's just bin that one. Okay, so we're doing well there with all of the options that we've got. You've got your search as well. So what should we search for? How about Camberwick? Camberwick Green. There it is. 1966, I wasn't even born. But I did love Camberwick Green when I did finally arrive here. Early 70s, you would find me watching Camberwick Green. So you've got your search in there as well. I think that is a pretty fully functional outlining app. And it's completely free. I will show you the options. Dark theme, so you could toggle that off and have it a light theme. You can show modification dates, you can adjust the heights to fit the text, and you don't always have to see those checkboxes if you don't. And you can show the notes for the selected rows if you want to, and change the numbering style. So all of that could be numbered as well. If I wanted each individual slide to be numbered, I could number them as well. You also have, which I appreciate, all of these options. So if you wanted to edit the shortcuts because you're trying to mimic another application, so maybe at work you have Omni Outliner, but at home you don't. You want to use this one because it's free and you'd like it to use the same shortcuts as Omni Outliner, then you can do that as well. And all of that is completely free. Now there is this button that says Pro. And in all the time I've been looking at this version, because as I said, if I show you, I put Cloud, I also have Cloud Outliner Pro. So I've got the free one, but I've got the paid for one as well. I've only seen one ad. I expected to see an ad every time I opened it. It is ad supported. There's no time limit. You've got to sit and watch it. You can just close it straight down. And that Pro button there is to take you into there and allow you to upgrade straight away. Now, one of the things you will notice with the Pro version, you can export outlines to PDF, which you obviously can't do with this one. It's got synchronization between iPad, iPhone and Mac, which should tell you there's an iOS version. It will also synchronize with Evernote, and as it says, there's no banners, which is this little Pro button, and no ads, although I don't think the ads are that intrusive. What I would say is, I don't think, if I do an upgrade now, it just takes you to the App Store, so you can buy it. It's not an in-app purchase from the free version. You actually get taken out to purchase it, which I think is a better way of working, because otherwise, every time you install it, you've got to then do an upgrade. So it actually just takes you out to the store to do it. But that is the best alternative I've ever found to Omni Outliner. In fact, in the Pro version, I do actually use it because I've got used to now not having to do the extra file management of where's that outline. I like the fact that there is that library on the left-hand side. So I think I've shown you everything that's in. I mean, obviously there's formatting and stuff like that, and you change the views and collapsing and all the rest of it. But basically, it's an outlining app. So let me close that down and let me get back in here. Right, Cloud Outliner Pro is $9.99. In other words, you could have something almost as powerful as Omni Outliner for less than a tenner. which is 10% of what Omni Outliner costs, because that's $100. So even the Pro version is incredibly affordable. Now, one of the benefits, the biggest benefit of going to the Pro version is, as I mentioned, there is an iOS version. And there is the iOS version. It does synchronize. It's completely seamless. It too has the dark theme, the light theme, all of the numbering options, coloring options, you name it. It is very, very, very nice. Now, the good news is, because what I intend to do is show you that next week. So I'll show you the Pro version next week. I'll show you the synchronization next week so you can get a feel for it. But in the meanwhile, because we do like to have homework, don't we? Homework, there is a free version. Cloud Outliner is also available, free of charge, on an iPad. So you could get a completely free version and have a bit of a play with it. Obviously, the Pro version is the one that synchronizes. So a lot of app developers do that. Instead of giving you, like Evernote do, that thing where you can only have 3 devices, and Dropbox do the 3-device thing. This just doesn't synchronize unless you've got the Pro version. It's as simple as that. But it's fairly fully featured to go in and have a play with it, and then at least make a decision whether it is something that you could find a use for in your workflow. So give it a go this week. But now we are on to freebies, and we are blessed and over-endowed with freebies this week. We always have our Creative Market freebies. Good ones this week, a couple of fonts. That Rockabilly font, quite handy that. That looks very 50s American. There's also a handwritten font there, that Rinstonia signature. The reason that we look at these, if you've never been with us before, and we look at these freebies, I put these freebies in a big folder, and then occasionally I pull one out and say, right, this is what I've done with this freebie. So you've got their development and creation icons in the lower right-hand side. They're pretty useful when it comes to UI and UX. I know they're Illustrator format, but don't worry about that, because Affinity Designer will read them anyway, perfectly. The one in the middle, the CV template, I do believe is an InDesign file. And the reason that we are collecting InDesign files is within a few months, Affinity Publisher will read InDesign files. So we need some to play around with. So you can get those from creativemarket.com/free-goods. But it's the beginning of the month-ish. And when it's the beginning of the month, we have freebies from elsewhere. And Envato Elements have a full range of freebies this month. You may need an account, but the account is free of charge. So there is quite a range of those. There is mock-up frames, there's images, there's InDesign files. They're beautiful. They are really beautiful. So elements.envato.com/free is where you will find that little lot. And Mike has a full range of other options that I do not have a slide for, which are from all the Envato sites. Every month, not Envato Elements, but the Envato sites, so sites like Graphic River and Photo June, give you one freebie. So you can collect 6 freebies. It's like a collection thing. Who remembers glasses from the Esso station with put a tiger in your tank coupons? We've got a funny story about a tiger in your tank coupon, haven't we, Mike? He's completely forgotten. He's completely forgotten wanting my phone number before we were going out. Is it all coming back to you now? And he had nothing for me to write it on, but one of his tiger tokens. So I wrote it on tiger token, and he couldn't get his glass that week. He was a tiger token missing. So don't forget to download your freebies. But right now, we are going to head into our comic creation kit. We are up to part 4. Oh dear, Jason, that's not great, is it? Bought the Affinity Photo workbook, but in German. My German's very limited. I think I can say thank you, and that's about it. Oh, that's most unfortunate. I'm sure they'll sort you out. When mine arrived, it was damaged, and they sorted me out. So I'm sure they'll sort you out. So Comic Creation Kit. Right, if you have not been with us before, we are in the middle of a multi-part demonstration, but each of these is standalone as well. I made a comic in Comic Life. Comic Life is an application for Mac, Windows and iOS. And it is pretty good. And I made these comics in it. But I noticed when I started getting up to about 3 and 4 pages, it really struggled. So what I'm in the midst of doing is replacing Comic Life with the Affinity apps. And last week we looked at halftone. Graham, it's your moment. Graham did his homework. These are the bears. I think he should call them Mike and Elaine. We also suggested MacBites Siri and Lady Siri, but apparently they're both boys. But at the moment they're just called the twins. And as you can see there, he's worked his wonders with a halftone pattern on them. In fact, he's got 2 halftone patterns. One halftone pattern for the background and one on the actual bears, although he was concerned he'd overdone it a bit. But no, I don't think so. I don't think so. You have to have enough so you can see what it is, but also that it is a halftone. And I think that's about right. Now, Graham actually said earlier that he did that in Pixelmator. And we've been using pretty much 3 apps. Pixelmator not being one of them. But Pixelmator is fantastic with halftone. It's amazing with halftone. It gives you a very realistic halftone, which I think is more realistic than the Affinity ones. But we're doing this multi-part extravaganza with Affinity Publisher, Affinity Designer, and Keynote, in case you haven't got the Affinity apps. And today is part 4. And what are we doing today? Today it's all about speech bubbles and thought bubbles. And there's quite a lot in there. So let's have a look at them. Now, I'll start with Affinity Publisher, because it's Affinity Publisher we'll be putting the whole thing into. And as you can see, I'd already started. Right, there's a blank page for us. Now, Affinity Publisher is the first Affinity app, let me get that full screen so we can see it, that has the full studio link. So if there's something that Affinity Publisher can't do, you can just flick over instantly to the interface of a different app. So let's take that screenshot. Oh dear, that's not what I wanted to do. No, that's not what I wanted to do either. Right, there we go. That is the screenshot that I took of the MacBites website. Now, let's say that I've taken the screenshot. The screenshot's absolutely perfect. You know, you have it full width like that. But we've changed the orange to something else. Oh joy. Or I want to edit the pixels because this is a raster-based image. I might want to edit the pixels. If what I wanted to do was take out, for instance, this I'm logged into WordPress, then that would be fairly straightforward. I could just get one of these tools here and draw across it like that. Go and get a fill from the background, not the orange one. That one there. Make sure I select it, click it, job done. So if it's just a cover job, that'll do nicely. And then all I would need to do is make sure that I extend that right to the far end. Job done. But if it's more editing pixels or something like that, I may want to do that in Affinity Photo. And that's where Studio Link comes in. All you need to do is the 3 buttons at the top, go into Photo Persona, and that's it. You are now in, although it says Affinity Publisher, the tools, the panels, the interface, the whole thing is Affinity Photo. Likewise, if you wanted to work with vectors, now I am in Affinity Designer. The Affinity Designer tools, the panels, the whole thing. Want to go back to Publisher, you're back in Publisher. So I was thinking about that from the perspective of speech bubbles. Which of the apps would support speech bubbles? Well, the good news is, with the Affinity apps, it doesn't matter which one you're in, they are all identical. You go across to, now bearing in mind, at the moment, I'm in Publisher. It says Triangle Tool, but it's also got Disclosure Triangle. These are your vector tools. And as you go down here, you have 2 dedicated speech bubbles. They're called callouts. All you need to do is choose that tool and draw one out. Simple as. Go back to the tool, choose the other one, which is a more rounded one, and draw that out. Now, if I were to go into the other app, so I'm doing it via Studio Link, the only difference here is that there's fewer tools on one because there's extra tools, but they are identical tools and they do exactly the same job. So that one was drawn on the left in Publisher, the one on the right was drawn in Designer. Go back and do that one. Exactly the same. It's exactly the same tool. Go into Photo. It's in a slightly different place, but they look identical. That's because they are. So with Affinity, it does not matter which app you're in, they are all identical. So I'll go back into Publisher and show you what you can do with these things. Because one of the beauties of working with Comic Life is it's incredibly flexible. Now in here, let's zoom into that particular shape. It's a smart shape. It doesn't look very smart at the moment. I have the Move tool selected and I can scale it, and that's it. Yeah, I can scale it like that. I can scale it, but that's it. But you have this tool below it, which is the Node tool. When the Node tool is active, you get extra points on it. You get five red dots. Each one of the red dots does something different. Now you can enter that Node tool in two ways. Either select it, or with the Move tool, double click, and that will automatically take you into the Node tool and make it active. The first one, this top corner, it even gives you a line to show you what that's going to do. What it's going to do, as you pull it, is make it completely square, or take it in and make the corners completely round. So that's what that one does. These four at the bottom do different things. Now, the red line shows you the extent of the movement of the node. So I can extend that out to the left-hand side and I can extend it out to the right-hand side. So that's what the red line's for, the extent of the movement. Likewise with that one. So if we zoom in and have a look at that, I can take that all the way over there or all the way over there. The middle one, let me zoom out, you see that goes up and down. So you can go all the way up or all the way down with it. This one over here will let you do like the left one, only that one is on the right, so it will take you the full length of that. So you could move that over there, move the left one over there, grab the bottom one and move that round, and now you've basically flipped that round. I know you could do that as well, which is just use the flip tool at the top, or even turn it upside down, or you could rotate it. So you can use any of those tools, but you can also use those red dots. So let's take that back and get it back over there. So that was that shape. This one was made in Designer and it has exactly the same dots. This one was made in Photo and it has exactly the same dots. So speech bubble wise, you're okay up there with that. But you had this one as well. Slightly different shape, much more rounded. When you click on that with the Node tool, you have 3 red dots. So you have the one at the bottom, which will let you go all the way along the width of the shape. You have that one there, which will close and widen the speech part of it. And that one, which will let you shrink down or extend the extent of the bubble of the text that you're going to put in it. You'll notice that that one does not have a way of changing the roundness of it because that is a round speech bubble. Okay, doing nicely with those. But you might want something entirely different. One of the things that I did, I'm wondering if I've still got it. Let me have a look. Let me have a look and see if I've got it under there. Oh, I really shouldn't delete things, should I, Mike? Normally I don't delete them, but actually I have deleted them. Right, we had one of the pages in the comic was not a speech bubble. It was a thought bubble. And if we go back to the shapes we've got, there is no thought bubble. There is, however, a cloud tool. That's the nearest you've got. So if you draw a cloud onto it, could you make that into a thought bubble? Now, this is a good time to start looking at thought bubbles, because you might look at that and think, yes, that's not bad. No, but it can look more like a flower. So what I've actually got, so prepare yourself, Mike, incoming. We have links here in part 4. There are stock sites which will have just speech bubbles for you to go and have a look at. In fact, if you look at all these and you want these in a comic, probably faster just to download one. But you can look at these 3, for instance. There's a speech bubble on the left with another one below it and one to the right of the what. And the thing with the speech bubble that's a thought bubble is it has circles coming off it, going towards the head usually. So that is what would change that, make that look like a thought rather than something that was said, which is more of these with a kind of tail on it and some kind of circle or square with it. So a thought bubble tends to have circles. So it's a good point to go and actually have a look at them. Now that's Pixabay. All of those are free. So you could download those and start working with them. All of those are free. You also have a site called Freepick, which we've talked about before. Freepick is pretty awesome. There's lots of speech bubbles. Just be careful here. The top ones are sponsored by Shutterstock and are payable. But the ones in here are free, unless they're premium ones. So that one's got a little crown on it. That's a premium graphic, but that one's free. And that one's free, and they've got their own halftone while they're at it. So I did a search in there for speech bubbles with halftone. And that brought me to that one. So that's got the halftone we looked at last week, the speech bubbles we're looking at this week, and some thought bubbles there. So that one in particular there, that thought bubble, that overlapping of the thought bubble dots, the circles, is a pretty good way to make a thought bubble. So use that for inspiration and come back and have a look at that. Yeah, that's not really going to work, is it? It's far too much like a flower. Luckily, double click it, you've got one red dot. So you could stretch it out a little bit, and now it does look more like a thought bubble than a flower. To make the tail on it, moving that so I've got a little bit of space, put a circle in. I'm holding down the shift key to make sure it's a proper circle, and then just duplicate that. So command key, option key, and pull it out like that. And you can see not quite right. They need to go smaller as they get nearer the head. Make a little bit of a journey like that. And then put them, and they tend not to be straight. They tend to curve like that. But as you saw, you could have one hanging off there like that. And put that like that. And you now have a thought bubble. Okay, now what if that is not what you want your thought bubble to look like? Well, I'm going to put that down, and I'm just going to use Affinity Designer at the moment. So let's make sure let's get a new file, full screen. No particular reason it would work in Publisher, but it's just that the tools are here. So I've got the pen tool. If I wanted a thought bubble, but I didn't want it to look quite as flowery, so let's draw out the flower that we had, this cloud tool. That's what that looks like. And it could be a little bit flowery. I might only want sort of 6 of these maybe. There's a really fast way to make your own, and you do not need any skill. Let's zoom in. In fact, I'll zoom out so I can see the size of that. I want it comparable to that, really. Right. Don't think with the pen tool you've got to be able to click. and drag and get that right, and then click there, and then which way do I drag to get that looking right? Oh, pen tool. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Undo it. Let's make it really simple. I want it to start about there. I want the first bump to be that big, and the second bump to be that big, and the third one, and so forth. And if that was a speech bubble, I'd be very happy. Now, obviously, it doesn't look much like a speech bubble, but don't worry, it will do. Go in and get the node tool, and then when you hover over the lines you've created, you get a little symbol. That little symbol is going to enable you, and it does default to the middle of it, to just pull out and curve the bits that you've created. And you can make your own speech bubble. That one, I double-clicked. That was my fault. You double-click, you get a straight line. And I want a curved line. And the beauty of all that is it remains editable as well. So not the best speech bubble I've ever seen. But I can go in and I can pull them in and I can pull these out and I can keep editing it. And it looks a little bit more gentle, shall we say, than the one on the left. So pull it in, stretch these up, and I can get exactly the effect I'm looking for. That's much better. Obviously with this one I can do that, but it's very uniform, whereas this one over here, not so uniform. And then I can put my bubbles in exactly the same way that I did. Hang on, there's a bubble, there's a bubble, there's a bubble. It obviously would make more sense if these bubbles had a black outline on them. So let's put a black outline on them. Stroke, there we go. And let's do one more, make that really tiny. And you've got your custom bubbles. So it doesn't matter what Affinity app you're using, works in exactly the same way. If you've done something like that, don't forget to group it, Command and G. And then in there you have your bubble. And I would call that Thought Bubble. Otherwise, you'll thank me for that later. There we go. So, very simple to work with that. But I am also aware that not everybody has all of the Affinity apps. So what can you do if you're using Keynote? Well, I've actually got Keynote running right now, but I will come out of Keynote. I am now out of Keynote, so I'll make a new Keynote file. Having a think about it. One new Keynote file. Full screen, come on. All right, there we go, one new Keynote file. I don't particularly on that want it to have one of these. I'm quite happy to have it blank. You are lucky at the moment in here. It used to have only very basic shapes, but luckily, two of the shapes it's got are speech bubbles. So there's one, and there's the other. And even though this is Keynote, you may want to do some cartoon work in Keynote, because if you're like me, I might want to put some of these cartoon things in videos. And a lot of my video assets come from Keynote, so I'm in there anyway. If I can do that in Keynote, then I don't even have to go into any of the Affinity apps. And as you can see here, let's make these bigger, much bigger. They work in a very, very similar way as you've just seen. We don't have red handles, no, but we have green. We have 3 green handles there. So this one will move it around. In fact, better than the other one. It'll move it all over the place. The one close to the body of the bubble will make it wider and narrower. And you'll see I crossed that over. And that didn't matter either, it just kept going. And the one at the top edge will enable you to change the radius to take it right the way through to square and right the way through to oval. So that's that one. This one over here, well, I can move that up and down, and instead of it changing the angle until I get to the bottom, at which point it will let me go around the corner, but as I pull it out, it tries to keep it straight. I also have the green arrow in the middle, so I can take that small and I can cross it over. So with that one, I've got those two there, but I also have this corner one, which lets me take it down to round. So it's very, very similar. I can have it all the way square or rounded slightly. It's very similar to the other one. It's just that they give you two to have a play around with it with. So even if you feel like the poor relation because you're using Keynote, don't. You can get great shapes out of that. The ones in here, if you want a bubble, you've got a couple of options. We go in there and look for bubble. You get quote bubble. You could put in cloud, and you do get a cloud, but unfortunately, it's more of like it looks like OneDrive, doesn't it, or iCloud. It's too straight at the bottom, really, to be the kind of cloud you're looking for. You can, however, right-click and make it editable, and if you do that, you can start pulling things out. So actually, that would be quite a funky speech bubble. But you can keep working with it. Pull it out the other way. Make shapes with it. You can pull that out there. Give that a shape. And now you've got a thought bubble. So don't forget that you can edit all of these shapes as well. And then use back in here. Get rid of the filter. Just get the round one, which it puts in there. Duplicate that out a couple of times, which I'm doing with the Option key. And again, just make those... Hold the Shift key down, scale them down, and you've got the kind of, let's make it so you can see it, you've got the kind of options that you need to make that look like somebody is thinking. So you don't need an expensive app to make comics and cartoons, you can do it like that. So we've looked at that in 4 applications really, because Affinity Publisher equals Affinity Designer equals Affinity Photo. They are all the same. So let's minimize that, minimize these, and let's get back into there. Excellent. Right, we're on to our unboxing. If you are new, we generally unbox something. Sometimes it's a wild extravaganza of unboxings, and we have 20, 30 unboxings. Today, Mike has something. Not really an unboxing, but sort of an unboxing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I need to get a camera so we can see this. I have got an unboxing of something that arrived today, but you'll all think it's Groundhog Day. But never mind, I'll do it anyway. What have you done with the cables here? You've got everything tangled. Oh dear. Right, I'm getting my webcam set up because it's looking a little bit poorly at the moment. And I have got that there, so let's move that up. Need the light on and all other kinds of things, don't I, Mike? So let's come out of that. No, not that light, this light, but never mind. That creates shadows that freak people out on the desk. Right, so I need multicam. Shout when you can see us. Where's that gone? Ooh, excellent. Without fail, it opens on the wrong screen. Without fail, it needs manually scaling. But there's my desk. Oh, it's still too big. Just a minute. You're better off making it too small and bringing it in and then scaling it up. I could frighten them all and say it was a toy from work, couldn't I? Because with Mike, that usually means Windows.
It is a toy from work.
I know it's a toy from work. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Oh dear. No, I've lost my keyboard. I'm trying to turn my light on. Why don't you just bring the chair across?
So I can't get the chair.
Oh yes, the fan. Well, you just have to stand up, sit down, or kneel in front of me.
Yeah.
Either way it works. Put it down so you can see it. Look at this. Oh, it's a Mac toy from work.
And it works.
It does now. It didn't at first,
No,
did it?
No, no.
Kneel down, give us the story.
Give you the story.
Yes.
Right, where shall I start?
The 65,000 Windows users you look after.
Up until about a year ago, most people where I work were on Windows. And then they decided to let people get Macs. And they said that if you want a Mac, you need to know something about it. So the idea was that you would either be a Mac user at home, you'd be a Mac user at another company, or you'd take it upon yourself to go and research it on YouTube. And then more and more people wanted Macs, just because they wanted Macs, not particularly creative people. And it's now got to the point where the people who want Macs for having a Mac's sake don't really know anything about it. So that's where we come in as the training team. So they've decided they would like to offer Mac training. So in order to do that, we said we need to have a Mac.
You demanded a Mac.
We demanded a Mac, yes. There's actually 2 Macs. One, this one was given to me. The other one was given to my colleague in the States. And the other one didn't come with a power supply.
Neither did yours.
It did.
Eventually.
Yes. So I was given this the other day after a week, a wait of a week when they wouldn't connect. It wouldn't connect to the VPN. And here it is.
Not brand new. Tell them what it is.
2013 MacBook Air with 8 gig of RAM and 121 gig hard drive, which is a bit of a strange number.
No, it's 128, I think, with a little bit taken off.
Oh, right. Okay. And it's working. Set it up yesterday. And they said to me, the VPN isn't working. So I brought it home, connected it to our Wi-Fi, and the VPN works.
Funny that.
Yeah.
You mean it works at home and it doesn't work at work?
Exactly. Oh, you can see me in the reflection.
Yeah, you can see you.
So wave. There we go. Right. So there it is. That is my very own work. Not my very own MacBook Air. My very own work MacBook Air.
That's a 2013.
2013.
Now this one that I'm about to put on the top of it is my MacBook Air. And that is an 11-inch. So that's the comparison with it. I think it's a lot bigger. You look at that edge there.
Yeah.
Let's just move the camera around and see that edge there. I was quite surprised at how much bigger it was. All of that there.
It's a thumb bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good inch and a bit, isn't it?
Mm.
And if I bring it round here, I don't know if the camera will go that far. It's quite deep as well, isn't it?
It has all the ports in all the sizes
No,
and
so
all the card readers.
You've actually got a card reader,
Yeah.
and mine hasn't got a card reader. So this is mine at the top, and it's not got a card reader. Peeved now. Peeved, but not to worry. So he's got a MacBook Air. Never had a MacBook Air before. Take my MacBook Air away.
I'll take my MacBook Air away. Right.
And that's mine behind it.
So that was my unboxing without unboxing.
My unboxing's funny. My unboxing is really funny. Where is it? Here it is. There's today's delivery from Amazon. Is that looking rather familiar, size-wise?
Yeah, it's an Amazon box.
Well, obviously it's an Amazon box, and you know what?
Time,
and you know what I'm like with Amazon boxes. Yes, I know, but this one's should be even more familiar than usual. Right, let's get into it.
Now it's crashed on me. Over put me wrong.
Can't get the stuff. Right, let's try and get in here. If you were with us last week and you remember what I unboxed, who remembers what I unboxed last week? That's a good start. There was one last week, I'm telling you.
About 4.
Or there might have been, I can't remember now. I'm as bad as everybody else. Right, but this is my unboxing today. Yes, this should look incredibly familiar. Does that look familiar to last week's unboxing? If you remember, last week I got a NetView camera and I showed it to you. It looked remarkably like that. And I said that we had multiple ones of these around the house. They're what we keep an eye on our borrowed dogs with, and security, etc. And what I'd noticed was this one is... NetView's a pretty decent make, supposedly. So I figured if I kept getting NetView, then I'd only need one app to access them. So that was what I did. So I unboxed it last week. If you remember, I had problems unboxing it, but this one's very Apple-ish. There we go. this one's actually packed very differently. So that's the quick start guide, which is fairly straightforward. I didn't actually talk you through the setup last week, but basically they give you QR codes. So all you need to do with that is point your phone at it and it'll download the app. Now, I already have the app, which I'll talk about. That, which you would think is packaging, throw it away. That's not packaging, don't throw it away. That is a template if you want to screw the camera to the wall or the ceiling. Screw through the holes and you are done, basically. So don't lose that bit. There is a free indoor camera if you give them a review. Lovely. And then there's the actual camera itself, which is in there. Now, you're wondering why, if I unboxed this last week, I am unboxing it again. It's not the same camera. Looks like the same camera, but it's not the same camera. So that's how it comes out of the box. And if you're using it like we do, where it is stood up, you can tilt it forward and quite a way back. We have ours forward because it's pointing down to the ground where said borrowed dogs are. When it comes to setting it up, it's incredibly easy, but the first thing to think about is where you're having it. Now, you can have it completely upside down on a ceiling pointing down. Now, if you're wondering how on earth that happens, because obviously the picture would be upside down, this whole thing here, if we look at that, and you can see there is there the inlet for the power supply at the top. This whole thing turns round. So look at the white label on the back. The whole thing turns round, and now that could be attached to the ceiling, which is what that circular thing was for. This thing. Thus. Excellent. Now, when you're setting it up, so we're having ours this way around. Right. When you're setting it up, on the back of it, there is another QR code. So once you've got the app installed, to hook it up to your account, you point your camera of your phone to that, and it pings, and the two talk to each other for a while, and that's it. Everything's sorted out. And it worked marvellously well. I plugged the cable into the bottom, I set the whole thing up, and away I went. And it was fine. And then I took it where it needed to live, and it died. Died totally. So that's why I have another one. It had to go back. So hopefully I'll have better luck with this one. It does take a few minutes to set it up, so I won't set it up now, but I'll just show you the rest of the stuff you get in the box, which is quite quirky. This is a plug. You do get a cable. It's the same cable as for a Kindle. So let's get this out of here. But the plug's rather dinky. Obviously, it's got a USB thing on it. But if you look at the plug, it looks a bit odd. Obviously, it's a British plug, but it looks a bit squashed, doesn't it? This prong in the middle actually pulls up, and that turns it into a standard size UK plug. At which point, you plug that bit in the wall and you plug the cable in the back. The other bit of the cable going in the bottom there. So, this week, I will start again with it. I think the only other items in here are the screws and the cable. So there is the cable. It's quite a long cable, which is good news. These are the screws if you want it on the wall. And there's also a little, one of those devices that you poke through a hole if you need to reset it, which I did. And it did no good at all. It died a good old death. There was just no joy. I've tried multiple cables, multiple power outlets. Nothing is working. So it needed to be returned. Hence, a duplication of the unboxing. How dare they? How dare they do that to me? Hopefully this one won't die a death. I'd be more worried if I didn't already have two of these working perfectly and have been for months. So I've no idea what was wrong with that one. But here we go again with this one. So that's what I'll be setting up this week. That one there. I got that on offer. They're usually around the £36 mark. I got it for £20. Amazon have daily deals, and sometimes once you've got a NetView account, they ping you and let you know if anything's going to be on sale. So they pinged me and said, here's a 15% thing, just click here. So I clicked there, and that added the 15% discount to the discounted price already. So all I really need to do with these now is just get them working. Because I had high hopes for this one. I wanted to put this one. This was covering a blind spot, but then it wasn't covering a blind spot because it died a death. Right, let's have a look at the questions. Love the 11-inch. I love the 11-inch. It's strange to think now. I've had mine 7 and a bit years. I didn't actually want to buy it when I bought it, my MacBook Air. I wanted to wait a year because I felt Apple at the time were being a little bit more predictable in how and when they released their products. And I knew there would be a new one the following year. And it was at the stage where I felt the battery would be a lot better. So I wanted to wait a year. But unfortunately, my father was seriously ill. And he'd reached a point where he couldn't drive anymore. And he had to go for medical checkups and treatment. And I needed the ability to work in the car. Now, when I say work, it was 2012. The iPad was primitive. So my mum said, you know what, just buy it now. So I bought the 2012 model and I went for the 11-inch because the ratio of the screen was right for what I do, which is recording video. Otherwise, I'd have to have really fiddled. So, and I wanted the portability of it. If I was going to work mobile, I wanted it to be incredibly portable. And that MacBook Air, I actually delivered a training session using the data on my... No, I had a MiFi device on 3G in a hospital car park in the middle of a rainstorm, and I delivered an hour's training session from it while my dad was inside getting treatment. So I have fond memories of my 11-inch, and it's still going strong, touch wood. Touch my wooden desk. I hope it will still be going strong for a long time. You're very welcome, John. Why did I choose that make? How it happened, I had another brand. I think it was called HiCam, HiCam. And it was literally just because it was cheap. I thought, that's a cheap camera, I'll try it. It was an absolute nightmare to set up. It does work. It is downstairs. We have that in the hall. The difference between the HiCam, and they're all about the same price because I certainly won't be spending £80–90 on one. This thing is very skinny. It's very light. But if you look at it, I have to move it. So I have to get that in position. The other one that I've got, which was the one I got first, is motorized. So when I've got the app open on my phone, I can turn the camera around even though I'm 50 miles up the road, which is really great. But I could not get the darn thing to work on the Wi-Fi. It would not have it. Luckily, because this one only works on Wi-Fi, there's, it really is. There's hardly anything to it. Luckily, this other one, you can plug it in. So I've got an RJ45 cable going to the switch and doing that. When I started looking at them in earnest, I then decided I wanted one that I could use with Alexa. So I've got some Alexas with screens. I've got one of the new ones, what are they called? The new 5-inch one. It's not a Spot. A Spot was the one that died. Show, an Alexa Show. So I've got a 5-inch Alexa Show, and I've got the other 7-inch mic, 9-inch, 7-inch, 7-inch, I think, the older ones. So what I do is I can say, Alexa, show me the front garden, and it will use one of these cameras and hook up to it and show it to me on Alexa. So I've got the phone app, but I've also got Alexa. So that was why I picked this brand in the end. I decided I could have more cameras, so I didn't need the motorized ones. They worked on the Wi-Fi. The app on the phone's good, and they're also Alexa compatible. So that's why I went for them. No idea what was wrong with that one that didn't work last week, because the two that I've had, one of them, we actually have it in the kitchen pointing out over the back garden. So we're cooking in there and all sorts. It must be covered in all kinds of stuff, and it's been working great. They do have a speaker on them. So on the back, there is a speaker. There's also on the front a microphone slot. So you can use them as like bi-directional. So if we're away and, not away, but if we're out and we're trying to check if the dogs we look after are okay, and you can't see them on the camera, you can push the microphone button and say, you know, Lola, where are you? And she'll come galloping up because she'll think you're there, and she's actually listening to this camera. So they work brilliantly when they work. I just do not know what was wrong with that one last week, but I'm putting it down to a blip, and hopefully this replacement will work well. So I'll get that set up, and then if we put it looking inwards and we put a light on, because it does work at night, you get an infrared view. But the two of these we currently have, because we're not with dog at the moment, we're dogless. It's a bit quiet, isn't it, Mike? We're dogless. Because we're dogless, they're actually pointing outside as security cameras. And when they go infrared at night, all you see is a reflection of a circle. I'll get it up on my phone so you can see it. This is the app. No, that's the other one. This is the app on the phone, NetView. At the moment, it's got this one in the middle that wasn't working. So you can see that one in the middle is actually, it's the landing, and there's Lola. So where my finger is, that's where Lola was. That's the front door cam. This one is, we call this Lola cam, but if you can see, what you actually are seeing is a reflection of the infrared light reflecting back off the kitchen window. So unfortunately, that doesn't work well when I'm trying to demo it at night. So what I'll do is I'll set this up, and I'll do a demo during the day, and I'll record it, and then I can play it to you as a video. But usually they work fantastically well. I mean, that you won't see outside the front door at the moment if I do that. What you'll see is something like that. But if I tap it, it will connect. So it's got a little bit of a brief picture of what was there the last time, and that is what's there now. So that, again, is the infrared of the camera reflecting back. And that one has got a funny symbol on it saying I can't connect. So that was the one that didn't work. So I'll remove that from the account and set this one up. So that's what I'll be doing in the week. Right, let's have a look. Off-topic question. Do you know of a good app for organising research? Like Neil says, EndNote. I also use, is it called Bookends? Is there a reference thing called Bookends? I haven't used the latest version, but that was the one I used when I used it. There's also there's another one that's been around for a long, long time, Bookends. Sunny Software, isn't it? That was the one I used when I used stuff like that. There was another one, and the icon was lovely. It was like a submarine, but I don't think that's been updated in years. You might be able to get away with DevonThink. It depends what you're doing. But certainly check out the two of those. That was the one I used when I used it. The beauty of that one is I think it does link in with Scrivener, Tinderbox, and DevonThink, I think. From memory, because that's what I was doing. I was having the actual articles in DevonThink, the references in Bookends, and then I had two different word processors that were Mac-only word processors that linked in with the pair of them. One was called Mellel, that's M-E-L-L-E-L, which is a word processor written by a guy who lives in Tel Aviv. He's been developing it for years. It's beautiful. It's incredibly powerful. Pages is quite gimmicky by comparison, and Word just does its own thing. So Mellel's a good word processor. The other one I think is called Nessus Writer Pro, and I think both of those link in with it. Now, Genealogy, there's a Mac app that has just updated. What on earth is that one called? And it's on the phone as well. Is it Family Tree? Is it called Family Tree? Family Tree 9 is what I use for that. But yeah, any of those should, if you're trying to take stuff out and put it as like footnotes and endnotes in a document, then those word processors. But if you're just using it for internal research, then maybe you want to link it into something like Tinderbox or DevonThink. DevonThink Pro 3 is getting closer. Beta 6 was released 2 days ago. I've actually managed to get Beta 6 installed and finally synchronized. So I've got the version 2 installed, and I've also got 3 installed, and they're actually synchronizing with each other at the moment. That did not work a couple of betas ago. So it's working well so far. It's very pretty. It's much prettier than the other one. The captures are working well. My only concern about it is they've changed their licensing model. This is like Groundhog Day. I don't mind paying for it. It's not a subscription, I don't think. What they were doing, the change in the license is it's now per computer, not per user. Well, have you seen how much kit I've got? You can have 2 activations for a single license, but the upgrade price is going to be around the £100 mark, and the normal price is £200. I don't want to be paying £200 to use a different computer. So I was very peeved when I read that. I thought I much preferred the model. There's only one of me, and I can only use one machine at a time. What they've now said is they have flipped that. As many people as you like can use it on one Mac. And I preferred it the other way around. But they did say when they released the first beta of DevonThink, let me get up some contact information instead of staring at that thing. That would be a far better idea, wouldn't it? Let me grab that keyboard that I dropped and get back. Where have we gone? Where have we gone? There we've gone. Excellent. Oh, we're back next week. We are back next week. Same time, same place. Part 5. And anything else that you contact me and let me know you would like to hear about. In the meanwhile, if you would like to hear from me, go to that link, sign up for the newsletter, and let me find how you can get in touch with us, which is that one. There you go. So, what was I saying, Mike? Before I rudely interrupted myself. Yes, DevonThink. They said at the beginning of the beta program it would be available via the App Store. Possibly not straight away. And I thought, well, I'm not bothered about the App Store version because I've always had it from them and I'd get an upgrade price. But as I thought about it, I suddenly had a complete U-turn and thought to myself, well, the way Apple license stuff through the App Store, it's to me and I can put it on any machine that I log into. So I think I would probably buy it from the App Store for that one reason. Obviously, that's going to be a big problem if they don't release the App Store version contemporaneous in terms of not within a couple of months. What I might be tempted to do is what I do with certain other apps, which is I'll buy the direct one, but then I'll also buy the one in the App Store. So DevonThink, you might need to think about the licensing coming up, depending if you've already got a version and if it'll do what you want. So, any more questions before we discover what Graham is having to eat? I think he should have a cherry bakewell. And Graham, questions will be asked next week, Graham, about whether you have seen the cherry bakewell programme. It looked fabulous. I couldn't believe it. I thought, of all the cakes, they had to pick the cherry bakewells. Well, I think we'll be having fruit and possibly some nuts. I'm thinking that would be a good idea. So we'll have a fresh fruit salad and maybe some of my favourite nuts. So if you would like to see something specific, maybe something Affinity-ish or anything like that, let us know. That colorization thing was a request in episode 9, and I returned to it when I found that other app to do it. We've had other requests for things. One thing we've had is doing the layout of a book in Affinity Publisher. So that one's on my list. What else have we had? One was about Scrivener. Yeah, taking work through Scrivener at the research and writing stage, and then how on earth do you output that into a format that Affinity Publisher can handle? And it can all be done. It's just a matter of knowing all the tweaks and secrets. So I'll be putting that together. Oh, it's an Eccles cake this week. Oh, he's gone different this week. Is it a sugary Eccles cake, Graham, or a real Eccles cake? Because some are Chorley cakes. But I've noticed with Eccles cakes, an Eccles cake should be kind of eggy on the outside and brown. And I've seen a lot of them where they're absolutely smothered in sugar. That's not a real one. Oh, excellent. You've tried whiteboard and Jamboards. Brilliant, brilliant. I spent a lot of my time this week tidying up my Notion setup. And you know, Notion is just fabulous. Best app ever. And it's one of these apps where you think, right, that's it. It's perfect. And then you have another think about it and you go deeper and you go deeper and you go deeper. What I've managed to do this week that's really amazed me is I've managed to tidy it up to such an extent that instead of having like multiple tabs open or loads of favourites, I've organised it in such a way. I've got this dashboard and I can just drill down into what I'm actually working on right now. Loving it. I also transferred my code database. I used an app called Quiver. I've also used CodeBox in the past. CodeBox got sold from one developer to another and then went subscription, and he wanted to charge you again for something you'd bought like a week before. That was not happening. Quiver's fabulous, but there's no iOS version. So I had a look at the idea and I thought, well, if I could transfer my code snippets into Notion, I'd have them available with me everywhere. Do you know, when I did it, it was amazing, because it's literally just one tiny little bit in Notion, and yet I had this whole app for it set up. You just don't need it now. So that's what I've been doing this week, and I have loved it. Loved it, loved it. Right, let's have a look. Oh, Mac Tree. Yeah, I've only tried this family tree thing. It's just been updated, and they've added in the ability to store DNA results in it. Not that I've ever tried that. Oh, you would like to see some Notion ideas? I am more than happy to show you Notion. Notion's just amazing. Without Notion, we would not be running 2 radio stations, 2 podcasts and a live show, would we, Mike? No. Absolutely not. Doing these live shows on YouTube coincided with taking our podcast production system into Notion. We have been through so many apps, it was unbelievable. We'd settled on a really good one. We were very happy with it, and we would not have moved. 2 events happened and we moved. We'd tried Trello and gone to Asana, then gone back to Trello, and then we ended up with one called ZenKit. Who's heard of ZenKit? It's software as a service on the web, and it's like Kanbans on steroids. And I moved the system from Trello and Asana because it was going backwards and forwards between the 2, and I took it into ZenKit, and we used ZenKit for a good 8-9 months, and we liked it. It was good. It was very nice. To the point we were about to pay for it, and I had one query. I just wanted to ask one query of the company. So I typed up this email that explained the situation, you know, that we had multiple brands and multiple jobs and blah, 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 but there was just the 2 of us. And I was looking for a good, do I take one subscription here with 2 people? Do I have 2 separate subscriptions? How does that work in the situation that I want? And I sent it in to them. Wasn't a tricky question. It was basically saying, I want to give you money. Can you just tell me, do I go for setup A or setup B? Never heard back from them. And I couldn't believe it. So I pinged them out on Twitter. Didn't hear back on Twitter either. And I thought, I'm not giving money to a company that can't even be bothered to reply to me. So that put me in a bit of a quandary. But luckily, at the same time, I tried Notion. And I got to a point with it where it was getting overwhelming. And it was getting overwhelming because I had too many things in the sidebar. A little bit like Evernote. If you could imagine having 20 notes in Evernote, and then you put 20 more and 20 more and 20 more, and they all appear in the sidebar. And that put me off. Then I realised that you could nest things and be much cleverer with Notion. And I remember saying to Mike, we're about to do a podcast. I said, I'm thinking of taking the system from ZenKit into Notion 2 hours before we do it. What do you think? And he went, you're lock-upable. I said, yes, that as well. But because I was so intimately familiar with the system, having had it through Trello, Asana, back to Trello, or we had it in Podio, we had it in Google Drive, we had it in ZenKit, that I looked at Notion and I said to Mike, I really think it could do it. I really think it could do it, and it could do it better. And it took me maybe 3-4 hours to get the stuff out, imported, tweaked, sorted out, and we had a workable system. After that, we realised the system that we'd transferred was nowhere near as good as it could be if it had been built completely in Notion. So then I completely redesigned it. And I just love Notion ever since. So we do pay for Notion. We went for one organisation and put all of the things in it, and it just copes brilliantly. Absolutely brilliantly. So yes, more than happy to talk about Notion. Yeah, CodeBook was a very good address book. I remember that when it came out, but my concern was that something would happen. And like you say, then they got bought out. Is it Zento? Is it Zento? Zerto. No, ZenKit is ZenKit. ZenKit.com, isn't it? It's a very good system, and I think if you just want to just buy the system, whatever, great. But if you don't reply to a ticket that I put in, I get a bit narky. I don't mind waiting. I put a ticket into Scrivener, and I waited 16 days and didn't hear anything, and I thought, I need the answer to this. Come on, guys. So I pinged them on Twitter and said, I know you've got a backlog, but 16 days, really? And he came back and said, so sorry. And he got the head support guy onto me, and I'd found a bug. I'd broken their system, and I said to Mike, I found that bug like 18 months ago, and I thought, oh, they'll fix that, and they didn't, and it then became critical. And I said, oh, okay, so it's actually broken, and he said yes, but we will fix it. In the meanwhile, use this workaround, and the workaround's working. So I don't mind waiting, but if you ignore me completely, then you're not going to have my business. You're not. It's as simple as that. Do I do Patreon or something? I don't know. I've not heard good things about that from a content creator perspective, in terms of you file your paperwork with them so that they pay you. But if you're not in the US, they don't like paying you, full stop. And they constantly have you jumping through hoops, asking you for forms that, as what the US tax system known as an alien cannot have. And therefore, they don't pay out. So that's why I've avoided them. How do we support for all the wonderful content? That's it. That's a good point. I'll work on that and let you know. There you go. I do have a couple of courses. I'm in the process of putting out more courses. So that is the way at the moment. But we'll work on that. Deb loves Notion too. Notion is very difficult to explain to somebody. It's like a Meccano set for you to build your own solution. And it is incredibly flexible, incredibly powerful. And if you spend enough time analysing your specific requirements and tweaking the system, you will get something fabulous. But so many people say to me, do you know what? I just want it working. I just want to open it up and it work. It can't. It can't read your mind. So you do have to spend some time setting it up. And it's one of those things as well where sometimes you see somebody else's setup and you're not doing the same job they are. Maybe they're a doctor and I'm on the tech side, but they've just done one thing that, if I did X, Y, and Z, and I included the, oh my. So looking at setups is a very, very good way to get ideas for your own stuff. I've demonstrated a few of the things that I built. I built a kit manager. I had all this information about all of the kit I've got. And, if you've got one iPad and you sell your old iPads, then you know what iPads you've got. But you saw that photograph earlier of my iPads. That was 6 of my iPads. That's about half of them. The other half are in the other rack. I pick up an iPad. Each one's got a different case. Some are white, some are black. One's an 11-inch, one's a 10.5. I've got a couple of 9.7s, 2 12.9s. One 12.9 is white, one is black. I can tell those apart. But some of the ones I pick up, there's 2 white ones. One is an iPad Air 2, and one I think is an iPad Pro. I have no idea which is which. So they've all got names. I pretty much know the names, and that's about it. I could not say to you, that for definite, that was a 2015 iPad. I don't know. So I built this database that had all my kit in it, and it tracked when the Apple Care was up and all of that kind of thing. That was one that I built, and I think I demonstrated that one. I think I demonstrated the system that we used to make a MacBites. But the system that we used to do an after hours, has changed greatly, because obviously we're up to episode 34 now, and every time you do it, you tweak it slightly somehow. So we've got quite a different system going on there. There's embedded checklists in it and all kinds of things. And it genuinely is. I know it sounds like I've drunk the Kool-Aid, but without it, I wouldn't be able to do this show. I just wouldn't have the time it would take to do absolutely everything that would need to be done on a weekly basis. So Notion is that good. It really is that good. They've also announced this week that they're bringing out a new... Now, I'm going to say View. They're bringing out a new something, and basically it's going to look like a Gantt chart. So timeline bars on a calendar view, if you're with me-ish. Not particularly a calendar, but a timeline view, which would be amazing, and people have been asking for ages in Scrivener. So I'm thinking that's going to be fairly imminent, because they don't normally announce stuff that far in hand. So that will be out in the next update, which should be amazing. I'm hoping that that comes with a duration data type. Because one thing I can't do at the moment, when we've done a show, we'll have like I do a short podcast type show for Brooklands. Basically, we have a walkers group, and they go out on a walk once every 2 weeks. And we said to them, why don't you do some audio recording while you're out? Because some of us don't go on the walk, some of us are working full time, and these is during the day, and we'd love to know what goes on. So this guy does a recording while they're out. Last week's was just hysterical. They wandered into a field of bullocks. Don't ask. They did escape with their lives, but only just. So he sent me this recording, and what I do with it is I top and tail it and put the music on and stuff. So I basically produce the show. And it's only a short little show, but it needs managing. So I built a system to manage the show in Notion, so I could definitely show that as well. In relation to that show that I intro and produce, somebody, was it Paul? Was it Paul with the Equine podcast? Peter, that's right, and who began with a P. He wanted to know how I would produce a podcast, and he was using Final Cut, I think, and I said, no, I use Hindenburg. So that was another demonstration that I could do. But I think if we did it on a short show, like this show that I produce is called The Walker's Warblings. That's another demonstration that we could do as well. Notion versus Microsoft Teams. Never heard of Notion till now, but looks pretty powerful. Notion is just amazing. And now you use Teams at work, don't you?
Yeah, Teams is more...
Move the microphone down rather than talk to thin air.
Teams is more akin to Slack. So you can't really compare Teams to Notion.
I would say Teams is about collaboration and communication. Yeah. There's documents in it, isn't there? Like a document library.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of comms going on with it. Notion is more... You can collaborate with Teams. Obviously, I collaborate with Mike. So we were using Slack. And for us, I think if there was more of us, if there was a team of 10, we'd probably still be using Slack a lot. But a lot of the content that we were discussing in or collaborating about, the collaboration related to something specific. So it would be, can you listen to this podcast and make sure it's edited right? Can you check this? Can you check that? So it related to a piece of content. And in a way, Slack running alongside it, it was divorced from the content. So we're using Slack a lot less because we're using Notion, which has basic communications built in. I would say Teams is something that they're really, really pushing. Planner is more like Trello. Notion, I thought, this was my opinion when I looked at Notion. Okay, Trello does Kanbans. Asana does Kanbans and lists. And Notion does everything. So Notion can't possibly do Kanbans or lists as well as a dedicated app could do Kanbans or lists. That's totally wrong. What I'm able to do in Notion with a Kanban is way more than Trello or Planner or Asana or anything else. Anything else at all. It has certain features, they call them linked databases, but they're actually clones, where I can create a linked database and work on a subset of the information with its own views, its own everything, but it's writing back to a central database. None of the others seem to do that. You're working with a bunch of data in it and it's all or nothing. You can filter it, but you can't make basically a clone of it and work with half of it. Now, I was talking about that podcast that I do, the Walker's Warblings. One of the things I wanted, those shows are about 8 minutes long, 8-9 minutes. I think the longest has been 12. I wanted a duration data type to put in there. Now, if they're bringing this view, maybe that will come and that will be fantastic. We're putting durations in, not even as seconds at the minute, are we? They're not calculatable, not without a horrible calculation. But they are constantly developing Notion. I don't think, I wouldn't switch to anything else. I've seen Planner, Mike knows it better than I do. But to me, it looks like Trello. And that's it.
Yeah, it is.
So, no, I wouldn't go back to just a Kanban. I hardly ever work in Kanban view now. I've got lists, I've got filters, I've got pivots on it. I can use a gallery on it, but I don't really Kanban much. I've got one Kanban that's absolutely huge. I could probably show you that. Let's come out of that. Let's get Notion up. And where's my MacBites? This is what has driven MacBites today. So that's one episode, which is in our shows database. So it's an in progress. That doesn't mean me actually broadcasting right now, although I am. It means the show is in progress. It's assigned to me, so I'm doing the work on it. These are the items that I'm going to cover. Show title isn't done until the end. We've no idea what the show title is until the end. It's got a release date. The duration I will type in when it's done, but I will put something like 2 hours, 30 minutes, 25 seconds. And that isn't really a number. It's got a link to the show notes, which will take me out to the show notes if I open the link. That's a link to the video. We don't use recording notes for this. It's all live. When we're done, we'll put the chat in there. Those are my checklists that I have. If I clicked play on that right now, it'd be very meta. It would start playing. I've got a link to the live events and a link to the live control room. That's the block I use when I put that anywhere. So if I wanted to put that on my blog or MacBites, I just need to click copy to clipboard. It's HTML and it knows it. When the timings are done, they'll be put in that block there by Mike, and I will copy them and paste them into YouTube. And that is from the contents items table. You can see in there's 2, 4, 6, 7 items. I have now points complete, and points is basically how much time is that going to take. And I don't do it in terms of time. I do it in just units. It's hard to explain. I did explain that in a show ages and ages ago. But basically, it's like, how difficult is that going to be? You can see one there. It says points 100 and it says points complete 40, which is that one there. That is the comic creation kit. So I know it's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take 100 units of effort, and I'm up to 40, so we're nearly halfway there. We'll be halfway there next week. The others, like 20, 20, 20, 10, just really a number of effort, and then I put that on a spreadsheet. Then we've got everything in After Hours is a demonstration because it's video-based, apart from the unboxing, which is unboxing. Then I've got the show that it's in, which obviously in here, because it's already pre-filtered, it is. But that table that you're looking at there has only got those 8 items in it. But at the beginning of it, you've got an arrow. And that says navigate to the original database. Now, the original database is not just for after hours. It's for all of the MacBites content going back to time in memoriam. So I am only looking at 8 items, and I can focus on those 8 items, and I can work with those 8 items while I'm doing it for the week. I don't want to see the others, but if I click on that, it will take me to the original database. This is the original database in its full horror. Look at it. Let's fold that up. It's got, that's a contextual intro. That's for another day to explain. We've got the welcome. Then we have sections in the show. MacBites, Chat Bites, Reality Bites, Focus, App Review, Hardware Review, Shopping with Elaine, that's always a classic. Apple Care Repair from Hell, Book Bites, Switches Corner, Beneath the Surface, iPhone, iPad, MacBites, MacLove Bites, you name it, we've got it. There they all are. And that is actually in a Kanban view. That's just traditional that it's in a Kanban view, to be honest, but you can see it's board by section. But I've also got all of these that I can look at. So last show was 120, so let's look at 120 by section. That's what we covered in the last show, so everything's complete. So if we wanted to drill down into that, like that one from Alistair, right? That's what Alistair put. So the whole thing is in there so we can work through it and put down the notes that we want to put in. And that's one item. But I don't actually tend to work in this view anymore. I tend to work in show view. But all of that, you can see how complicated that is in that item, but we hardly ever use it. So I would go to show production. There's the shows. Those are all our shows. There they are. And we are in 35. So I open up that, open it as a page, and I work in that view, and it's a lot easier. But Notion is just amazing, the things that you can do in it. All right, let me catch up with these questions now. Have to get a bit nearer for that. Free versus personal version decisions. If you're talking Notion, if you're talking Notion for the free or personal versions, try the free one. It works via the number of blocks. I think I got to the limit, which is either 500 or 2,000. I can't remember. I got to the limit really quickly, but it was worth every penny. If you're working just you on your own, I think it's £4 a month. It is the most amazing thing you will ever do. What radio stations podcast do you run again? Well, we have MacBites when we can get a show out of the door. We've got MacBites FM, which we are working right now, ready for Q4 with unique content for. So you can hear runs of old shows on MacBites FM at the moment. We run brooklands196.com, which is for the one for our local group. That broadcasts 24/7. But content-wise, if you want our content, because there's syndicated content on there, you will find it at brooklands196.com. The Walker's Warblings are on there. There's an interview between Mike and I about the presentation. The presentation is on there. You've got well, everything's on there as podcasts, apart from the stuff we do that's music. We cannot make music available on demand. So, for instance, we went to a Queen show. We went to 2, actually. Obviously, you saw last week's. That was the second one we went to. Well, when we went to the other one, in the week before, I put a show together, which was 90 minutes of my favourite Queen songs, with lots of segues between. That has to be heard live. We can only play that live. We can't make it available on demand. So if you go to brooklands196.com, you will find some of those, and we're in the process of putting up a schedule. So if you want to hear some of the music stuff, you'll at least know when that's available. Right. Yeah, I got a little bit of discount off. I think I got 2 or 3 months free with Notion. You get I think you get $5 and the person who signs up with your affiliate link gets 10. I think that's right. Have we replaced MacBites with live sessions? Not really, no. We've just been so busy. It's been chaotic. But we're working on it. So no, it's not instead of. I think the thing is when it's live and you've said it's live and you're going to do it, then you've got to do it no matter what. And there have been times when I've been putting the finishing touches to slides at 5 to 9. Weekends are incredibly busy. But no, it's not instead of. We also do MacBites Live, which is after hours is... How do we describe after hours? Not formal, very informal is how we describe it. MacBites is more, we do product reviews, we do software reviews. We also cover Apple News and give our opinions on Apple News.
Two iPhones talking.
And we have two iPhones talking to each other. They do love each other, really. That's MacBites. That's been going for 12 years. We don't do training in MacBites. It's a chat thing. It's a chat thing. After hours is demonstrations, but not big hulking demonstrations. It's, we asked about this happened this week, but it's all demos. MacBites Live is when there's an Apple event and we cover it live. We don't do it on YouTube. We have a private room where we relay the audio, but we've basically stopped doing that because a lot of people can get the audio now. They couldn't before. But they can now. So we're changing how we do that. But basically, the Apple events used to be amazing. And we were just so giddy as we were watching them. We've been doing that for 10 years this year. But the last few Apple events, the prices have been astronomical. The stuff they've brought out isn't really what people want. And the events themselves have not been anything like as good as they were when Steve Jobs was around. But the fact that we're there sharing it with people who are like, who is this person and what are they talking about? We have an absolute ball just laughing in the chat. We do a half hour before and we do maybe a half hour to an hour after where people come in and say, well, I didn't like this bit, I did like that bit. And we talk through that. So that's a live. We also have MacBites Learning, which is what I'm working on at the moment. So Q4 hopefully is going to be huge. You see, Jason says, I'm so organised. You wish you were. I'm getting there. I'm getting there with Notion because Notion can do so much. I find, before I've had Evernote and I've had OneNote and I've had Trello and Asana. I've tried them all. And the problem is it's all too fragmented. I wouldn't put a PDF in Trello maybe and I wouldn't put that in there. And then the communications is happening in Slack and everything is just difficult to manage. And that's where Notion, I don't believe anybody can go into Notion and set it up perfectly from day one. And I don't believe anybody can take somebody else's setup and it works straight for them either. I think it has to be what works for you. And what works for me might not work for Mike. What works for him might not work for me. It's got to grow. You've got to give it time. I tried Notion 12 months ago and I gave up with it quite quickly because it was overwhelming. And like I said, I had too many links in the sidebar. It was crazy. Once I realised I didn't need to do that if I put the stuff in tables and I organised my stuff in a different way, then it became usable. So think of it as a library. You go into a library and you've got the Dewey Decimal System and the librarian will know where any book is. You might not, but they do. Imagine that is Notion after you've been using it for a couple of months. But the day you start is like standing in the middle of a library surrounded by packing crates full of books. And you haven't got a clue where anything is or where it should go. And the only thing I can suggest that you do with it is just try it. Some people have said, design the stuff on paper first and then go build it. And I would say that sounds like it's very sensible. But with Notion, it's not. Just dive in. Dive in because whatever you build, you can make it better later. I have done the sit down and think about it thing, and it doesn't help. I start thinking of other scenarios before I've even built the first scenario. So what I did was go in and do it. Like my code database, the code database is completely standalone. It does not rely on anything else. It's not linked into anything. And I was putting off doing it, thinking, well, I don't know what fields I'll need. And I thought, you know what? You've got it in a notebook, this Quiver app. And Quiver's pretty decent. It's not bad. But you're not using it. So could it possibly be worse if you just stuck it in Notion and didn't put any meta with it? And I thought, no, it couldn't. And you know, when I actually sat down to do it, it took me less than 30 minutes. And now I've got access to absolutely everything. Mike, make a note. I'll show them my code database and how I did it, because I've still got Quiver installed. Oh, I would love that. I would love that. Notion and Affinity replacing Adobe Lightroom. They're working on it. They are working on a replacement for Lightroom. No idea when it will be out, but they have already said they are working on... They've not said it's a replacement for Lightroom. They have said it is digital asset management. So I'm really looking forward to digital asset management from Affinity. I'm also looking forward to Affinity Publisher on iPad. But I don't think that will be with us this year. My best guess on that would be next year. I don't have any inside information, but judging by how long it usually takes, and you want it to be right, I would imagine it would be next year at the absolute earliest. Right, so... You need to try Bakewells. You've got to try a Bakewell, Kim. So good luck finding a Bakewell. And report back if you can find one. Now you've got some pictures, you know exactly what you're asking for. I'm not actually sure. What's in a Bakewell, Mike, underneath the icing? Is it custard? Or is it a filling? I think it's Bakewell filling underneath icing, underneath a cherry, wrapped in pastry. But I can't eat them, so I'm not 100% sure. But good luck with that. I'll dig out the picture of the big Bakewell that we've shown before, because they're still on at our local hostelry. So I'll dig that out and show that for next week. In the meanwhile, if you want to see something specific next week other than Notion, I will show you something Notion-y. Then let me know. That's our contact details on there. Anything you send to any of those, you will find us. You will find us. Other than that, we're going to have something to eat. I hope you all have the most amazing weekend, and hopefully I will see you all back here, same time, same place, next week. But for today, it is good night from me.
It's good night from me.
And we will both see you next time. Thank you very, very much for being with us. As always, you have been a complete joy to share the evening with. $22 is fabulous for a year of Notion. I think ours came to $130. No, $170. But we're on the businessy thing. There's 2 of us, 12 months, etc. So that's what we did. I'm shutting up now. Going now. Bye-bye.